Gary, this is Dick. I made it.
Oh, great. And we got Ian or Ian.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. See you now. And Lisa's here, so we're just waiting on Ron. Let's go ahead and get started. We're afterwards and we got a lot to go through, and hopefully Ron will be on in just next few minutes. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Looks like 1:03. You ready for the motion to approve?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. We need a motion to approve February 16th, 2021 General Service Committee meetings. Is there any questions or discussions? Do we have a motion to approve them as is?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Lisa, second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay, we got Matt. We got some presentations. PS boiler recommendation, Matt O'Connor. So we'll get him up.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I've got with us today Rob Campany and Dan Burnett. They're the engineering, Fourth Coast engineers who are helping us design the boilers over to the PSB. And I just wanted to give you a little status where we're at and give us where we can go from here. So hopefully by the end of this, I'd be looking for a motion to go out to bid for this, for the boiler portion of the of this project. So right now we're looking at it'll be a full redundancy system with two 1 million BTU condensing boilers. They're a high mass boiler, and they will also have chemical filtration on it with that, so we can keep the pH levels to where they need to be. There'll be new control components to control those as well for all the pumps and so on and so forth, along with a reworked fresh air intake that we'll have to accommodate in the new space as well. So the boilers are 97% efficiency. They're fire tube boiler, and we have a few of them that we're hoping to go to bid with as far as using as alternates depending on pricing when they come in. So we'll, if we are able to go out to bid here, we'll have these bids probably 4 to 6 weeks and have them opened up and get the project rolling during the during summer of 21. So Dan or Rob, would you have any additions to that a little bit to fill in on?
I think that's a great summary. Hello, everybody. My name's Rob Campany. And I have with me my colleague Dan Burnett on the call as well. So we've worked with Matt to kind of go through the boiler selection process and make the best decision on the equipment replacement selection. We looked at traditional cast iron boilers as compared to the more modern condensing boilers. And there does appear to be a life cost analysis savings with the condensing boiler technology over the period of life.
Yes, I'm on it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So So we've vetted a number of different boiler manufacturers, including Wiesmann, Fulton, and Weil McLean, which are all very good boiler manufacturers. And we've developed the plans and specifications for the replacement, and we're basically ready to put this out for bid. The estimated construction cost for replacement of the boilers, replacement of the primary pumping and piping in the boiler room, as well as Matt mentioned, the combustion air ductwork and new flue piping. The total cost is estimated around $230,000 for the replacement. The boilers will be much smaller than the existing boilers, as you can imagine, and will fit in place nicely in the mechanical room. So we have plenty of space in the existing mechanical room. And of course, the boilers will be interconnected to the existing building management system that's in place to control both the boilers and the air handler. So in summary, most of the work, or all the work, it will be contained in the boiler room in this phase. But we'll include the boilers, the piping, the pumps, some electrical work, and control work. So I think that's a quick overall summary, Matt. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, Jerry, I'll leave that up to you to see if you have any questions or anybody else.
Well, we appreciate it, Matt. I guess the first question that I had, we've looked at all the rest of the stuff as far as the heat exchangers, and everything's good there to make it work, because we've had, I think you and I have talked about it. Sometimes it's cold, they can't get enough heat and stuff like this. So everything should be adequate with this new boiler.
Yeah, the new boilers will certainly be large enough to accommodate the heat. The real heat dilemma will hopefully be solved with the air handlers. So that'll be a big plus for us to get. And that's what we're looking to do, is with the next phase of this project, try to get it down so it's the comfort level throughout the building is a little more consistent. Right now it's kind of all over the board, and we're going to try to get it to be a little more consistent, and that'll happen. The majority of that will happen in the next phase of the project.
Okay, is that the one? Are we looking at the AC too? And
Yes. Yep.
okay, the condenser boiler, correct me if I'm wrong, that's putting it up close to steam to get the heat there, and it comes back in a liquid. Am I wrong in that reasoning compared to a conventional boiler, which heats the water to a certain amount, like say 160, 180?
Now, really, the condensation is a result of the high efficiency. So it really is independent of what the boiler water temperature is. So these will heat water down to well below 140 degrees. So, but what happens, a conventional boiler, which might have an operating range of say 140 to 180, depending on the outside air temperature, maintains the flue gas at a temperature that any water vapor, of course, water vapor is a byproduct of burning natural gas. So that water vapor is maintained in a gaseous condition and goes out the flue. With a condensing boiler, we're taking so much heat out of the combustion gases, it cools the exhaust gas so much that vapor that's in the exhaust gas actually condenses out. So we're going from like 84% efficiency to 97% efficiency. So it's really, the condensing boiler really is a matter of the added efficiency in the combustion process, and not so much the temperature of the water.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Anybody else got any questions for the committee? Dick?
Yeah, Matt, what size were the boilers again?
1 million BTU.
Each, right?
Correct. Yes. We'll have 2 1 million BTU boilers, full redundancy for that building.
Okay. Did you look at a lead lag system where you'd have,
Yes, we did. The boilers come with that already kind of pre-programmed, so they are able to be set up for lead lag. And,
okay,
you know, they typically, some boiler manufacturers recommend, a couple, whether it's a week or 2 weeks, some even recommend going out as far as a month, as far as the, lead lag of it. So.
yep, okay, good.
Ron, Lisa, you got any questions?
I have a question.
Who's that, Greg?
Yeah, if I could.
Go ahead.
Matt, do you have an idea, ballpark idea of what these boilers are gonna be priced out at? Just a ballpark.
Yeah, ballpark, about anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 a piece.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Committee, Ian, Lisa, or Ron?
I'm all set. Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome. Lisa?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay, Ron?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay,
Gary, just a reminder, the entire project that we're doing here was an $800,000 budgeted project. Like Matt said, this boiler is obviously a big part of the decision-making process. It's going to determine how we go forward, but there's still other elements that need to be added to this project. So we still have more work to be done. This is just the first main big decision to get things going.
And also I believe that the air handlers will be the vast majority of that cost. And we did say that that $800,000 tag was, I believe it was 19, numbers. So, it's certainly with construction costs, the way they are fluctuating drastically at this time during the pandemic, we really won't know until the bids come in and what the final price will be. But it wouldn't surprise me if we go over that 800 with just the way the cost of materials are fluctuating.
yeah, everything's super high, lumber, everything. Is there any other questions for the committee?
Nope,
Okay, do we want to do a motion to move it forward? I'll make a motion to move it forward.
I'll second that motion.
So Jerry, the motion by Matt was to be able to go out to bid.
Ed,
Okay.
and see what we got there. So we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Ron. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay.
aye,
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Thank you, Matt.
You bet. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Rob and Dan, for showing up.
You're welcome. Thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
Same here, sir. Is Cassandra in? I know Ryan is, for broadband update.
Yes, they're both here.
Okay, I'll start and Cassandra can jump in. You'll recall that last year we brought forward an idea to contract with the Development Authority of the North Country to hire a company to come in and do an inventory of all broadband in Lewis County and also do a market survey of people in Lewis County. And we chipped in $30,000 and the Development Authority chipped in $30,000. And we hired a company called ECC, and they have completed the scope of what we asked them to do. And we're going to get into this in more depth. What I would like to do is have folks that are interested come in early on April 6th for a 4 o'clock meeting. We can really get into the details of this, but I just want to remind everybody kind of the background of what we did and then give a little preview of some of the results. So like I said, there was 2 elements to the survey. The first was called a BAT, which is a broadband aggregation and adaption tool set. That was basically the market survey. And our goal was to reach 500 Lewis County residents to complete a market survey on broadband. And the survey asked questions about the speed of internet that they have now. What speed would they like? are they currently being served by a provider that is satisfactory? And then there was a lot of price point questions. Would they be willing to pay more for faster speeds? That type of thing. As I said, our goal was 500. I think you've probably seen all the marketing materials that went out from the planning department and DANK. We got a lot of press coverage. And I'm proud to report that we actually had 1,200, over 1,200 participants in the market survey. So that goes to tell you how important this is to our community. People were willing to take the time out of their day to log on and do a survey. For perspective, with JCC and their annual survey, they typically get about 450 people, and that's considered statistically relevant. So 1,200 is certainly statistically relevant for us. So that was the first part of the survey, and we have all kinds of great results. In fact, some of the best results are the open comment section at the end, where we asked, we just kind of let it open for people to give their own comments. So that's all in one of the reports. The second report is called the Broadband Infrastructure and Inventory Survey, and that's where ECC had engineers that drove down every single road in Lewis County and physically in person surveyed the infrastructure that was on those towers. What they've done is create a map that shows, several maps actually, that shows where the inventory is, area that has been covered by grant funds, and then they overlay that with the market survey, and it really reveals some places where the demand is high and infrastructure is lacking. And so that will help us identify areas that we could apply for grants that are not necessarily areas that have already been served by a state or federal grant. So really, really great work by ECC. I'm very happy to be able to share this with everybody on April 6th. What we need to think about, really, now that we have this information, we're going to be the first community in the North Country that has completed this survey. Jefferson County is in the process now. St. Lawrence County is in the process, but we were first on board, and so we're first to have the results. So the question that you guys need to start thinking about, in my opinion, and we'll get into this in more depth on the 6th, but what are we willing to put towards this? It's obviously a huge need in our community. It's something that the residents care deeply about and something that's very important for economic development. So how do we use this new information we're going to have, and what skin in the game, as Jerry likes to say, are we going to put? What are we willing to put forward to contribute to this effort? So we will have the Development Authority folks with us on the 6th. Our goal is to do kind of like we did with JCC last month, where we'll have a 4 o'clock presentation ahead of the 5 o'clock board meeting. And we'll get into the nitty gritty. We'll look at the maps. We'll look at, the survey results, and, we'll give you guys some food for thought to start thinking about, is this a potential project that we'd be willing to put some money towards for out of our stimulus fund? What type of grants do we want to start going after? Those types of things. And then we also have to think about not necessarily where the demand is today, but where is the demand going to be in 5 years? We can't measure where someone would like to build a house. We can only measure what's there now. So we got to look at building permit data and those types of things and make an informed decision if we're going to invest in this technology. So I think it's very exciting. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most exciting things the county has going on right now. And I hope that we can come to consensus about, going after some grants and even maybe putting some of our own skin in the game towards serving the residents of Lewis County. Cassie, what would you add? Oh, your mic's not working again, Cassie. just like the other day. You can run down to my office real quick. So,
Frank, you figure you'd buy her a microphone.
You had this problem. Still can't hear you, Cassie. We had this problem last week, and we thought we fixed it. So, looks like she's going to run down. So, any preliminary thoughts from you guys? I mean, I will share these reports with you. We just got them. They're in draft form. There's still some typos and stuff, so we're waiting to tighten up some of that. But I'll definitely get those out to you here by the end of the week, probably. They're very dense. They're long reports, 100 pages each. But they're packed with great information. So any thoughts or, preliminary
Well,
ideas?
it looks like the stimulus package has money set aside for broadband, which that's exciting. So hopefully we can get some of that.
Yeah, $10 billion in the stimulus package just for broadband. Additionally, we are going to send a letter of intent, hopefully by the end of the week, for the Northern Border Regional Commission. We are eligible for that grant. We haven't gotten it in a couple of years. And, we'll see if we can come through with any funds for us. But at the end of the day, if we're going to really make an impact, we might have to think about, whether we're willing to put in some county funds. Cassie, go ahead.
So out of the 1,200 respondents, there was about 400 that went and put in the extra effort of filling out a comment at the end. And it was really eye-opening. I'm going to really push the legislators to review those comments. They ranged anywhere from I am moving out of the county and never looking back because of the lack of broadband to I wanted to open a business in this area and I decided to go elsewhere because it would cost $35,000 to install broadband. They were, bedridden and trying to get medical experts' opinions through telemedicine during the pandemic, and they couldn't. We don't realize the impacts on people's lives until we read those comments. So I would just, when you do get the report, after it's finalized, I just highly suggest that you read through those comments because I think it'll give everybody a new perspective on how much of an impact we could be making on the lives of residents in Lewis County. And I'm going to go fix my microphone.
Thank you very much. Ryan, question.
Yeah.
You were talking about you're going to send the reports out or get them to us maybe the 6th or whatever.
Yeah, before.
We probably need to spend some time on those as far as getting up to speed as much as we can. When are you looking like for a decision and the final discussion sort of? I mean, time seems to be somewhat of the essence.
I don't know about a decision necessarily. We've got to really decide, what our level of commitment to this is. Are we going to use this data to chase some grants, or are we willing to put some money in ourselves? I think we've got time with that. In terms of the survey, I hope it's going to be finalized here by the end of the week, which means I can get it out to you guys well in advance of the 6th, the meeting on the 6th. So that's my hope, is to get it out to you guys. And then I'm hoping to kind of generate some discussion on the 6th and see, what the level of interest is. There's lots of things in our community that we could invest in right now. We know that, but is this something that's worth, putting some of our stimulus funds towards, or, maybe bonding some funds? I mean, we got to think about that and figure out, where we sit with that. So I guess on that perspective, I'm really waiting to hear from the legislators and see, what your level of interest and commitment is,
Okay. Committee, got other questions?
Jerry, this is Dick. I support what Ryan is saying, and I think we've got to give some consideration seriously to putting some money in towards this. I understand what Cassie said, and I've heard the same comment she said. So it is an important thing that we need to give consideration to.
Yes. Ian, you got any comments?
No, just echo what Dick said.
Ron?
Well, if anybody needs internet, it's me.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of anxious, I'm really excited about it. I mean, I don't know the numbers or anything, like I don't think any of us do right now, but personally, if stimulus money is there available and isn't earmarked for something else, and it would help us along the way, I wouldn't be opposed to using some of it.
Lisa?
I will
Oh,
say,
go
Ron,
ahead.
that Denmark lit up like a Christmas tree. That's one of the least served areas. So
The only thing they serve there is beer, lots of it.
Yeah, I would just add that I'm looking forward to reading the report. I mean, hundreds of pages of reports. That seems daunting, but we spent this money to hear from the experts. So I'm curious to see what they say.
Right, I think we need to look at it hard and weigh it out, have discussions, and that I'm not opposed if we need to put money in. So, other than that, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, I got one probably stupid question. Typically, if anybody knows this, what kind of if you get a decent internet service like that, what kind of a cost are you looking at from each homeowner that's involved in it? Any idea what that could run?
I think a majority of the people in the survey concluded that they spent anywhere between $50 to $75 a month on service. But they were willing to spend anywhere between $25 and $75 more for a reliable internet source.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions? Ryan, you got any other comments or anything you thought about while we're being it back and forth?
Nope, I think the 6th will be interesting. I think you guys will be shocked with, geez, between Dank and Lewis County, we paid a pretty penny. But I do think the company delivered some very valuable information. So I'll be excited to go over it with you guys.
Appreciate it. I guess the next one, and you're up again, is capital building projects.
So last month we signed a contract with CNS for the concept phase of our, what we continue to call the 3-pronged approach, which is renovation of DSS, addition for Board of Elections, and new highway garage. And so Matt O'Connor met with some engineers from CNS. They were in the DSS building Tuesday, kind of going through some of the infrastructure there, looking at some of the HVAC systems and things like that. They're also looking to do 3D scan of that building. I don't know if they completed that Tuesday, but they're working towards that. Tomorrow we have a meeting with CNS is going to have their first chance to sit down with the department heads that are affected by this. So Tim is meeting with them in the morning, along with a couple other department heads, Jackie that might be in the new building. And then in the afternoon, late morning, it's going to be the folks at DSS. So the Jenny Jones and Crystal Collette and Pat Freilich are going to sit down. Larry and Jerry are joining that meeting as representatives of the Board of Legislators. And the goal of those meetings is to go over the work that we did in 2018 with Bernier and Carr and make sure that still holds up and identify areas that may need to be updated from that. The engineers will continue to go through each of our buildings over the next few weeks. And when we really have some significant checkpoints, we will bring that back to the committee for discussion. But right now it's really a learning phase for CNS. They're trying to get up to speed with what's been done and get up to speed and confirm some of what Bernier and Carr put in their reports and kind of begin there, so to speak. So that's the plan with CNS for right now.
Committee questions?
Ryan,
Go ahead.
sorry, Ryan, this is Matt. CNS did complete their 3D scan the other day. It'll take a couple of weeks for them to process all that information. And we did meet with several different engineers, both Tuesday and Friday, both at DSS and at the highway garage. So.
Okay, committee, got any questions? Dick?
Ryan, when you went through your list, I didn't hear DMV mentioned. Is that a piece of it?
Not currently. There's some work behind the scenes that we can talk about in executive session that Joan has been working on, but we haven't broached that subject with CNS.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, you got any questions?
No, thank you.
Ron
No, I'm good.
and Ian?
I'm good too.
Okay,
Jerry, would you mind if I ask a question?
sure.
I don't know if it's too early for me to get involved at all, but because there is technology and DSS and other of these departments need access to county resources, it would be nice if I would at least be able to see what the plan was for the tech closet or something like that for any of these locations. So if I need to be brought in for one meeting just to talk it through, that would be good.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think me personally, I think you need to participate to make sure those text closets go where they need to be or within reason for you to make it happen, because all the technology that I assume or plan on being involved in it.
They're not big requirements. It's just given the current state of DSS technology where it's located. I just don't want to admit in public where it is right now. So it's got to be
Right,
in the next building. So
But no, I mean, I think as they get, going through, you need to be questioned or have a seat at the table there, that what your needs are. You know it. None of the rest of us do.
Yeah, and I don't mind admitting in public, it's in the middle of the hallway. That's why we need this project.
Yeah.
just a security hazard, Ryan. That's why I wouldn't want to admit it.
Is there any other questions for that? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Police reform.
I'm up again.
Yep.
So the governor's executive order obviously put some pressure upon all municipalities and local governments with a police department. We got to work and have met 5 times on a committee that Larry put together to take a look at this issue. We met 5 times between December and our last meeting was last week, March 12th. The group, the mandate from the state is fairly broad, and the group really narrowed that down to 3 categories that they felt were most relevant to Lewis County. The first is mental health, substance abuse, and homelessness. The second is police standard operating procedures. And the third is police training. And so we dove down into those issues. The sheriff's office provided us some data in terms of reports of sample examples where we've responded to calls involving substance abuse and mental health. He provided us with some samples of their standard operating procedures, particularly with use of force, those types of things. And then we discussed training, the training budget, and how often training is available to the deputies at Lewis County. What we then did, according to the state's executive order, is we tied each of these 3 areas of focus to a specific measurement, and we have to keep track of some things going into next year, 2023, and we're going to track to make sure that some of these things are being done and putting us towards the right direction. One of the things that we want to start tracking is we want to have a better idea of training, and so the one outcome is that the sheriff's office is going to provide a quarterly report to the General Services Committee outlining the types of training that have been complete by the deputies and the corrections officers during that period. A second issue with mental health, substance abuse, and homelessness was we recognize that there is an opportunity for stronger partnerships with our local agencies. We already have a lot of people in Lewis County working on these difficult issues, mental health, substance abuse, and homelessness. And so the sheriff's office is going to attend the Priorities Council meeting once a month, specifically, or excuse me, once a quarter, specifically to discuss issues around policing and these things. Furthermore, we're going to try to do more trainings where we incorporate local agencies like CRADO and TLS and the ARC, so that, our deputies are, one, building a relationship with the folks that are kind of working alongside them on these same issues, and two, where it's an opportunity to collaborate and understand, who else is working in this field that can, help us tackle these issues together. So overall, we achieved what the state asked of us. And I did send out that report to the entire Board of Legislators. And so your goal today would be to, if you choose, your goal would be to accept that report as a committee, or, give feedback that we can adjust that report. And then it will go in front of the board on April 6th for final approval. And then we'll send it off to the state of New York, and we will have fulfilled our obligation to the governor's office and this executive order. So that's a quick summary of the work that's been done and what we have left to do. And I'll turn it back over to you, Jerry.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. I guess Larry was on the committee, and Tom, if they got any additional input to go with what you had talked about and stuff like that. So Larry, if you got something.
No, I think that Brian did a good job of summing it up. Yeah, I can't think of anything further to add.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
No, I think Ryan's summary was good. I agree, there was an awful lot of stuff in the governor's directions that don't apply to our area at all. And we picked out the key topics and went from there.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Ryan did do a good presentation and stuff. Back to the committee. Is there any questions?
Jerry, this is Dick. I've got one, I guess. My observation and understanding of what happened, I'm just trying to get a handle on it. But in Lewis County, we've got the Lewis County Sheriff's Department, which is part of us. We've got the village police for the village of Lowell. We've got the state police. My understanding, the state police is exempt from this process or isn't doing this process. But the village did a process and the county did a process. Has there been any overlap, communications, or any of that to see that we've blended those two in the same direction?
Yes, I'll let Ryan fill you in on that one. We had participation the last meeting.
Yeah, we did have Lieutenant Simpson, who is one of the head folks in our area for the state police, was on the call, our last call on the 12th, as kind of showing their support and trying to learn about some of the initiatives that we're going to be taking on. So we did have that overlap with the village. I can't say that our committee in particular did much with their committee in particular, but obviously the two agencies work together quite often. I personally have reviewed the village's plan. I think they've done a wonderful, wonderful job with their plan.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. So when these are submitted, our expectation is the state will say wonderful job and move on and we're good.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, Dick.
They'll move on.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
You'll sit in a pile on somebody's desk, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Is there any other questions for the committee? Tom? Ron?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Lisa?
I would just say that the process did not always seem easy at times when I watched it. So I think that this is, the report looks great, and I think it was beneficial. So well done.
Well, thank you. Oh, crap. Ian?
I watched most of the videos, and I just want to commend everybody for the work they did on it, and especially just to recognize Christy again for her role facilitating that discussion.
Yeah, she did an excellent job as far as keeping us on track and all the rabbit holes and everything else. Ryan, do you want a motion now to move it forward from the committee if they're willing to?
Unless there's any other feedback, yeah, we can do that, and then we'll have a public hearing on the 6th, and then the board will adopt it.
Does anybody got any more they want to chime in on or questions? If not,
I'll make a motion to move it forward.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second.
Who is the second? Ian?
Sure.
No. Well, I couldn't recognize the voice. I'm sorry. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so we'll move it to the full board and stuff like that on the 6th. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. And we got some dockets to go through, I believe, next.
Yes. The first docket is a resolution authorizing amendment to the 2020/2021 annual renewal agreement with the Unified Court System for court cleaning and minor repair services, which reduces the compensation to be reimbursed to the county to $116,867 for this annual period.
Okay, questions or discussions?
Why the reduction?
Matt, are you still on? You're on mute.
Ryan, I can, if
Okay,
Matt's
go
on, I
ahead.
can let him.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
It was actually it was one of the gate arms for the parking lot that Matt had intents to repair and replace, and he had that in his original budget. And about 3 months after we'd submitted it, they looked at that specific item and decided it was not eligible. So we had to remove that from the funding request.
Yeah, we had to switch it from the percentage of reimbursement was switched to a different category. So instead of 100%, it was more to like 10%, I guess.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.
And I would just add that they actually signed off on the original proposal we submitted, which was about 123,000 or so, I think, Matt.
Yes, that's.
And now they've sent us another amendment saying they changed their mind.
Yep, that's basically it, Joan. I had that same conversation with Eric when we received that email back. And I said, they've already approved it. We sent it to the board and got it signatured. And they said, basically, it didn't matter because it wasn't signed on their end. Didn't matter what we had approved or they had approved already until it was signed that they were able to change their mind.
Okay, so essentially what they took off there was like an expense that unforeseen expense or one time. It didn't cut the hourly, the cleaning and stuff like that. We're still there.
That's correct. It only cut a one-time expense to replace the entrance or the exit gate here for the parking lot.
Okay.
Budget,
Thank you, folks.
Just so you guys know, the budgeted line item revenue that we're counting on for from the state is 111,000. So we still are on the conservative side of the budget.
Thanks, Ryan.
Committee questions?
Sounds good to me.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing the filing of 2 2020 Small Cities Community Development Block Grant applications to secure funding to assist low and moderate income households with homeownership assistance and housing rehabilitation within Lewis County in an amount not to exceed $1 million.
Is there any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution establishing lead agency status and negative declaration under seeker for adoption of the Lewis County Agricultural and Farmland Enhancement Plan.
Questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing the adoption of the Lewis County Agricultural and Farmland Enhancement Plan.
Questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing appointment of Jessica L. Young Esquire of Durr, Riley and Young PLLC of Boonville, New York, to provide professional services as indigent legal services administrator of the assigned council panel for Lewis County, commencing and retroactive to March 1st, 2021 through February 28th, 2022, at a monthly all-inclusive rate of $2,000 payable under funding from the Hurl Herring Grant Funds.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution authorizing agreement with Percival Land and Timber LLC and its agent Domain Timber Advisors LLC for a temporary access easement to the county for access and development of the county's public motorized recreation trail system in northern Lewis County from the Bryant's Bridge Road in the town of Diana along the abandoned Bald Mountain Road in the town of Diana to the Oswegatchie Conservation Easement in the town of Krogan.
Any questions or discussions?
This will help link us so that we match up with St. Lawrence County eventually.
This is actually the easement we had with the Mopus Group last year or a year and a half or so ago. Mopus sold the property and Jackie did terrific work over the past year to work with these new owners to get them to agree to a similar easement so that it now, I believe, and Ryan, you may know better, I believe it now connects us to the northern part of our county to the trail system.
I think the Bald Mountain Road carries you all the way up through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's one catch, Dick. We need the piece from the state of New York that we had before that we, they were resistant to for quite some time. They finally gave in. Jackie has sent a request to them to, to reinstate that portion. As long as they go along with it, we would have what we had before, basically.
Okay, thanks, Larry.
Is there any other questions from the committee?
I got a question, Jerry. Is there any cost to this?
No.
So they're gonna do this work.
We already
They're
did.
just lumbering it. Huh?
We already did the work. Then the property got sold and
Oh, I see.
trails were still there. Now the new owner's letting us on.
Okay.
Greg, we do have to, there's some additional sign expense. Of course, the normal and customary maintenance agreement that we had before, but
Yeah,
there is an additional sign expense. That's all I can think of right now.
Okay, thanks.
but go ahead, Greg.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay. I mean, if we were putting new trail in anywhere else, we would have additional sign expense too. So, okay. Any other questions or discussions? Anybody? Okay, all in favor, aye.
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 Okay, opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution to appropriate funds in the recreational trails and trail maintenance accounts for the purchase of a trailer with a cost of $18,200.
Jesus.
Any questions or
Money for a
discussions?
trailer.
Well, that's quite a trailer. It must be 18 grand.
Anybody talk to it at all and give us an idea of why it's so big? I thought we had something over with,
It has an arm on it so that it can do corduroy roads, bring it in when they're doing the corduroy stuff.
what's the arm for?
In the capital budget.
What's the arm for, Ryan?
When we build corduroy roads, it
Mhm.
helps us move trees and stuff.
Okay.
Wow, still seems high. Was this bid out at all?
Not at the bid phase yet. We're just moving the money.
Well, how do you know how much money to move if you haven't put it out for bid?
That's what the budget amount was. Eric, can you comment?
Yeah, actually, and maybe Cassandra can help. I do believe Jackie bid that, and I think that is the low bid amount.
Wow.
I don't know what the budgeted amount was, but as Ryan said, it is in this year's capital budget. I could check that quick.
Is there any other questions?
Ryan, are we building our own roads and trails with the summer help and maybe one or two other people, or are we hiring that done?
No, we do it all ourselves. And
Okay.
it's only like 4 people and sometimes Jackie.
Mhm. And how have we done it all these years without something like this?
Well, Dick, it's been a process. They've had different trailers, different trucks. It's been a growing experience as we have recognized that we need a bigger trailer. We traded in the older one and moved to a bigger, newer one, more appropriate one. So, it's been an ongoing process. It's I guess.
Can I clarify now that I'm on and you can actually see my comments?
Yes, please.
This is a woods trailer, so it's something we can take out on the trails to haul our culverts in, to move corduroy in. It's got a picker arm to help place things, pick it up, load it. So it is road worthy. We can use it to haul logs, stuff to the site as well. But it is slightly more than what was budgeted, but steel prices, tire prices, everything has gone up with COVID. So we got 5 quotes from local dealers, and this was the lowest quote.
Okay. The arm on there is probably what is blowing the price up for you.
Right,
Then.
it's a small loader arm, so it's just
Yeah.
like a log loader, but it's a
Yeah.
smaller version.
Yep. And what's going to draw this thing? You've got a tractor or something?
We have a, for on the road, it would be our F550. And then in the woods, we have a dozer, we have a tractor.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussions? Anybody? Okay, all
I don't
in
have any.
favor?
Aye.
Ron or Ian?
Oh, I'm good.
Nope.
Okay, all in favor, aye. Opposed,
Aye.
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 opposed, nay? Carried.
Resolution authorizing amendment to agreement between Lewis County Solid Waste Department and Barton and LaJudas to provide professional construction administration and inspection services associated with the construction of the solid waste transfer station improvement project at a cost not to exceed $51,250.
Yeah, I questioned this one with Ryan, and we got on the meeting the other day, and Joan, Larry, I and Ryan were there. Back when we talked about construction managers, it'd probably be an additional cost more than we can do it this way. But I guess we're gonna be getting so busy. We need to have a discussion whether, even if we hired a construction manager, there's enough stuff to keep them busy beside this project with all the design and everything else. So, I guess we'll go around the committee and see what the people's thoughts are and different stuff. And Ryan, Larry, Joan can chime in or anything else.
I would just say we need to have some professional help. So, what this contract will help with, and whether it's this or a clerk of the works, whatever you guys want to do, we got to have some professional help because there's things that need to be done, such as hardness tests on the steel, slump tests for concrete. We need to have weekly meetings with the contractors and subcontractors, progress meetings, those types of things. So, however you guys want to go forward, I do think that Kip and I and our team need somebody that is, can help. My personal opinion is I like my career, and I know Jerry feels slightly differently, but I don't mind having the same engineer that designed follow us through to construction because they kind of know the ins and outs of the drawings. and we've got a relationship with them on this project. But if you want somebody for different checks and balances, you know, that can be done as well. But I would say that we would want some engineering level person assisting us through the construction phase.
No, I agree 100%, the checks and balance with somebody. But, you know, I got thinking about it. Think about this. We're going to be going into design phase with the other buildings and stuff like this and everything that's going on. And, you know, that's part of the clerk of works job, to review those drawings, find out where there's mistakes, where there could be cost overruns. So it's not just for this one project. We're getting pretty close that we might want to consider it for all the projects. That's where I'm coming from. Because they're not just going to be done with this when the, how you say it, solid waste is built. They're going to be designing other buildings this year, getting ready for bid. So, I mean, that person could be looking over those drawings and checking them for problems and stuff like that. So,
Jerry, I'm just a question. I'm a little confused here because this project is going in the ground now and those other projects, you know, are a year off probably. So, with the exception of the rehab of DSS. So, is there something that the clerk would do in that gap of process?
well, between the two is what we've had when we've had clerks before. They're reviewing this design process and stuff like that to make sure they don't find any faults in between so they can get corrected and we don't send them out to bid. I mean, so, and we're going to be doing a bunch of this design stuff. So, I mean, this is where we're getting into, I guess, is where it would help us to have somebody on reviewing this stuff.
So a clerk of the works actually reviews an engineer's design and critiques it?
If he finds stuff that he's concerned about, yeah, we do have the discussion. I mean, I don't care. We just got it up for discussion. I mean, it's whatever everybody wants to do and stuff like this. So
how would you do that, Jerry? How would you find a clerk of the works that's like, okay, we want you to look at the solid waste one, but maybe 6 months from now, we might want you to look at this one. Are we going to pay them by the job or pay them by the hour or pay them by what? How?
Well, I mean, we're getting in a situation by June. We're going to have some stuff done. So, I mean, and how long is it going to take the clerk up there or whoever, construction manager, to do solid waste?
So I'm just wondering if you're talking about a clerk of the works that you're going to hire as a county employee, Jerry. I'm kind of looking at it the way Greg is, that usually you hire a clerk of the works for a particular project. And perhaps it can be a professional hired for a number of projects, but if that's going to continue on, then we get into issues as to whether or not it's an employee or if it's an independent contractor. So
well,
we'd have to specify
the job, whatever. Yeah. But the thing is, that's somebody that represents our interests and protects the county. It's not relying on other people. I mean, I know everybody tries to do the right thing and this and that, but I'm just bringing it up. We talked about getting one as we get into this stuff, and you know, it wouldn't hurt us for the benefits we'd get to start one now when they start construction on a transfer site.
I agree. I agree with you, Jerry, but I think we're going to have to do it project by project.
Well, if we can do it project by project, but I guess the other question is, is there's going to be a point in time we can go back and set another project with them because we're going to have a lot of stuff that really needs to be looked over.
Well, the other thing is we only hire him for this one. We'll find out how he works and how that person
Right.
works. Like him too.
And
So-
do another contract, but you know, I don't foresee this being his only job if he's worthwhile.
Right. Right.
So what this resolution is talking about is this professional construction administration and inspection services. Would that be doing a similar job to a clerk of the works? I guess I'm
The people
confused.
the people that design the building will be doing their own policing or design. You know, they'll have somebody there part-time, and then the decisions left up the department heads and stuff like that if they got to change something the way we're setting now, because they're not going to be there full-time. Does that make sense?
So this resolution that we're voting on right now, I guess I'm just this is not is this separate from a clerk of the works? Can we have both of them? I
Yeah,
guess I'm just
Lisa?
confused why we're going
Yeah.
down.
They're trying to do the clerk of the works job. The
Lisa?
people that designed it are doing that job. That's what their proposal is. So it's the same company. So what I'm talking about, if we get a clerk of work, they're individual.
And so don't do this resolution, say no to this, and then have a clerk of the works instead.
Yes.
Well, in addition to that, we asked B&L to send us a revised proposal if the county brought in a clerk of the works here, because as the design engineers, they would still be providing services on the project. They would be available for progress meetings, to answer design questions in the field, review progress in according to the contract documents, and provide technical interpretations of design related to the items that the county might request or the construction contractors might request. So they've sent us a revised proposal for that limited service, which would be $20,100, because and when we were on the call, they did say that there is some overlapping work that they would do and what a clerk of the works would do. So that's why we asked them to give us a revision.
That seems. We shouldn't have to pay. We shouldn't have to pay the engineering outfit that we hired a fee to go over their design. They're the ones that designed it.
Yeah, but we asked them originally, remember, the way we go into projects, we always ask engineers for these phase one conceptual options, right? We did it with fuel system. We did it with the solid waste. Now we're going through it with CNS. Normally, I wouldn't say normally, but a lot of times you'd walk into a project knowing roughly what you want, and an engineer would give you a cost for the whole shebang. But we go to an engineer and say, we don't know exactly what we want. Can you help us figure it out? They say yes, but that always leads to additional contracts down the line. I mean, I think this is typical with the way we have approached projects. You can't expect Barton and LaJudas to know what their construction management cost is going to be in December 2019 when we didn't even know what we were going to ask them to design yet. So I am feeling a little sympathy for Barton and LaJudas, and I do feel that they need to be part of our process. Maybe not as involved as a clerk of the works type thing, but we're going to need them at the table through construction no matter what.
Well, we need them at the table, but every other contract we've done, Ryan, and it's not to be negative what I'm going to say, is that we've never had to pay additional for them to oversee and go to construction meetings. So the thing is, they got paid to design it. Those fees should have been in there to manage it as far as what their thing is. I lost your voice.
the typical cost of engineering is 10 to 15%. If you add this 51,000 to what they've already done and take it as a percentage of the total cost, it's only 10%. So we asked them to chunk out their work. We asked them to. And so now they are chunking out their work. We can't call an additional contract.
Okay.
I just, can I say a couple things here? So, I'm wondering if we can handle this clerk of the work duties in-house between Matt O'Connor, Tim Hunt, Kip Turk. And if we went with the original $51,000 proposal, are you three guys comfortable that we could handle the majority of the clerk of the work in-house, or do you feel we need to reduce B&L scope and move forward with the clerk of the works? What do you guys think?
Jerry, if I could comment on that?
Go ahead.
What I'm looking at right here is an engineering firm that is multi-trade capable. If you get a clerk of the works, my experience with them over the last 40 years has been they usually are pretty good in one or two areas of the overall field, but usually they lack something. Here you're going to get a degreed licensed civil engineer looking at all the different aspects of this. You're not just kind of getting one person usually with these engineering firms. You're getting a service that encompasses a lot of people with a lot of expertise. My question is, if the 51,250 isn't tied to some hours, how do we tell that we're getting our service throughout the whole process of construction? We won't run into a point where they say, well, we figured it was going to take this long, but now it's taking this long and we need more money. Was that discussed?
Well, the way I understood it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, they were only going to be there partially anyways, and it was the department heads that were going to make the decisions if they need to be made.
Barton and LaJudas was committing to 1 day a week inspection and certain tests that needed to be done, as well as running and managing the weekly construction meetings.
Okay, so you do have a way to balance and ascertain if we get what we paid for. That's what I was asking.
But yeah, Jerry's. I mean, I guess Jerry is right, and what he's saying is that if something goes wrong, then we're still going to call Barton and LaJudas, but yeah, we don't have a third. There's no third party. It's going to be on us to figure it out if something goes wrong, and we'll call Jerry and Larry and try to come up with a solution. I mean, ultimately, it's not a complicated project. We're putting a metal addition.
As long as that happens, Ryan, but it has, and don't take offense, please. This is before you. It hasn't happened. One of them, we put 3-inch cap on some concrete, and it wasn't the legislator's decision, and it should have been. It got caught, and we made them pull it out and pour it to the grade it should have been. So that's what I'm worried about, and it's happened quite a few times.
Well,
so we need to be involved.
I won't be able to commit personally to that level of oversight of thickness of concrete and wire junctions. I mean, that's way outside of my expertise.
But if we're putting I could see if the rest of the committee agrees to it with Larry and I, when there's decisions to be made in emails, so we're aware of what's going on, to help them make the decision or take the responsibility for the decision. But I really hate to put it on our employees when we can be left holding the bag.
I'd rather put it on a clerk of the works.
Yes.
What's industry standard? What do other counties and large projects do? Do they
if somebody
rely on B&L, or do they do clerk of the works?
If somebody has somebody capable of doing it in-house, a lot of times on smaller projects, they do it in-house.
Okay.
But if they don't, you need some expertise. That's all I'm saying.
I believe Beaver River School used a clerk of the works on some of their projects.
Yeah.
We're very smart over here, so.
And the hospital's using the clerk of the work or the construction management group. It's not the same one that designed the project. And those are, just, you get a better product, I think.
Yeah, and that's a $30 million project, so that's certainly understandable at the hospital.
Normally, $1 million project would not have a clerk of the works.
Okay. And the practicality of it, is there somebody that we can get in to do this in the time frame that we would need it to be done?
I don't think in any, 51,250, you're looking at more than that for a year's work out of a clerk of the works type of deal. And you're not getting a degreed engineer usually. You're getting somebody that's
Okay.
comfortable in one or two aspects of the job.
So what's the committee want to do?
If we've got the timeline and we can validate that they're gonna do the whole project through, Jerry, I don't think I've got any problem with it.
So who are you gonna leave responsible to make decisions?
I get, what type of decisions do you mean, Jerry? I'm confused.
If
about
there's a problem, to change it. It's just like pouring concrete. If you're 3 inches too low and then they turned around and let them put a 3-inch cap on it, it's not going to hold. So Lewis County is going to be paying for it down the road in 2 or 3 years. That's the stuff I'm talking about. So that's why I asked before, we need to be involved and hear the stuff. It's not wanting to run it or this or that, but how the hell can you make decisions when you're not into these discussions when stuff goes? So if you want to run it with Kip and Matt, and that's fine. There's a problem. Larry and I need to know about it because I think it's more of a legislator's decision than it is department heads. So whatever way you guys want to go, I think we've discussed it long enough, but I feel we had to discuss it, so. Any other questions and concerns?
Do you want me to answer Larry's question, Jerry?
Yeah.
I have talked with Tim and I'm certain Matt. I haven't talked to Matt, but if you need us to head it, we can, but with open discussion with anybody that we need to have it with also. I mean, it's whatever you gentlemen want.
I'd rather not put it on the department heads if I was there.
Are you three guys comfortable with trying to do it in-house? I guess that was my question. Matt, Tim, Kip?
Yes, I feel that we could, familiarize ourselves with that, at least on my end, the building side of it would be, I'm sure that we can handle that as a team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak frankly. I think the tension comes where, I think those three have the technical expertise. They bring things up to my level, and then, I don't always know what. I'll be honest with you, I don't always know what the board expectation is with some of this stuff. If it's thickness of concrete, do I think the Board of Legislators needs to act on that? I do not, but I know that some of you guys do feel that way. And that's why
I think if there's a problem, we need to be aware. That's where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with you.
And stuff like that, because some of that stuff, it's maybe going to take more than department heads if it push come to shove to get them to do the right thing.
Yeah, sometimes we need a heavy hand to come down on these contractors. I agree with that.
That's what we needed over at JCC.
So
contractors at JCC were within 1% of their bid.
Yeah, okay.
We just need to be able to follow it, not being there, but on the same aspect. So if we got a problem and Kip and Matt bring it to our attention, then we go ahead and discuss it. And you have an understanding, you know, how it got there and stuff, and you can make better decisions. That's all I'm saying. Either that or cut all of us out and get someone in there to protect it, run it for us. So we can either be cheap or we can be a little bit more expensive. I don't care. The only thing I don't want to do is short Lewis County. So is there any other questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye, to move this forward the way it is?
Aye.
Aye.
I got two, right?
Yes.
Well, Dick,
Yes.
Ron,
I guess yes.
Lisa,
Aye.
Ian?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm voting no. Oh, motion carried.
Okay.
Joan, I don't feel comfortable with it.
I
So you-
understand.
You do what you want, but if it goes wrong, it's your responsibilities. So, motions.
Okay, so the first one is a motion to award bid for hot asphalt based on project location in accordance with the tabulation of all bids prepared by the highway superintendent and placed on file with the clerk of the board for the period of April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022.
Do we have a motion? Who's making it?
I'll make that motion.
Lisa, second.
Aye.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, carried.
Okay, and the second motion is a motion to award bids to various vendors for bulk oil and lubricants for the period of April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022 in accordance with the tabulation of all bids and respective low prices on file with the clerk of the board.
Who's gonna make the motion?
I'll make it.
Ron,
Yeah.
second.
Lisa?
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay.
Gary, if you don't mind, I'd like to just note that the solid waste scale house bid opening will be tomorrow. It'll be virtually at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you're a legislator and you didn't get an invitation to that bid opening, just let me know after the meeting and I can go ahead and send that out to you.
Cassandra, this is Dick. I'd like an invitation to that if you can do it.
Anybody else? Okay, and then we got our department reports and stuff like that. And I guess the only other thing, Eon had some, go ahead.
Jerry, I just wanted to note that I did want to have an executive session, attorney-client privilege session with the committee at the end of finance and rules, probably, to go over some negotiations on some properties and some updates on the schoolhouse property as well.
Okay, so if the committee can all stay on for it afterwards, great. I think Eon had a request, give a little thought process here.
I did. Thanks, Jerry. I mentioned this to a couple other people. I wanted to read into the record some information that I'd gathered from the American Medical Association and then just from some other sources from the CDC about school reopening with the understanding, number one, as others have correctly pointed out, the counties don't have any say over school policy unless say is specifically delegated to the county by the state for some reason, and that's not happened. But I did want to at least just kind of channel some concerns parents have shared with me and then some of my own concerns as well. So several months ago, our board put forward a resolution calling on the state to approve reopening plans for the schools in Lewis County. Those plans were subsequently approved. Each school adopted some form of what we call a hybrid model, with some, if not all, students attending in-school instruction for a few days per week with the overall goal of reducing classroom density. As a parent, I'm grateful that my two oldest have been able to go back to school to want to change schedule from prior years. My view is that the hybrid model was properly understood as a temporary concession, driven by legitimate concerns that emerged from a lack of information about the risk the virus posed to students and staff in a public school setting. Now that time has passed, I want to publicly add my voice to those calling for the state to permit full-time instruction in our public schools and private schools as well. My reasons are threefold. Number one, we have a better sense of the risk that the virus poses to children and staff in a school setting, and we know that risk is manageable. So I'm going to quote some statistics from a January 26, 2021 article in the Journal of the American Medical Association. It's called Data and Policy to Guide Opening Schools Safely to Limit the Spread of COVID-19 Infection. As many schools have reopened for in-person instruction in some parts of the US as well as internationally, school-related cases of COVID-19 have been reported, but there has been little evidence that schools have contributed meaningfully to increased community transmission. A case control study of exposures among children aged 0 through 18 with and without COVID infection in Mississippi found that having attended gatherings and social functions outside the home, as well as having had visitors in the home, was associated with increased risk of infection. However, in-person school attendance during the 14 days prior to diagnosis was not. In the fall of 2020, 11 school districts in North Carolina, with more than 90,000 students and staff, were open for in-person education for 9 weeks. During this time, within school transmissions were very rare. 32 infections acquired in school, 773 community acquired infections, and there were no cases of student to staff transmission. Similarly, in a report released by the CDC on January 26, 2021, with data from 17 K through 12 schools in rural Wisconsin, with high mask adherence, COVID-19 incidence was lower in schools than in the community. During 13 weeks in the fall of 2020, there were 191 COVID-19 cases in staff and students, with only 7 of those cases determined to result from in-school transmission, end quote. And I'll point out, with respect to Wisconsin, Wisconsin has taken the approach that schools can decide for themselves whether to do a hybrid or in-person model. And some of those schools did have full-time in-person instruction. And also with rural Wisconsin, demographically and climate, even the climate, it's pretty close to the North Country and upstate New York in general. So widespread vaccination has pushed down our COVID numbers and freed up space in our hospital. We must consider the possibility that any increase in community spread caused by full-time in-school instruction is nevertheless within manageable parameters in terms of county resources because of the great success we've had in getting people vaccinated. So that's my first point. Second point, near universal vaccination of school staff, I believe, has reduced the danger posed to adults. The state allowed for school staff to jump ahead in the vaccination line while there was still an ongoing danger to the elderly population. And this was something we encouraged and we sought out. This was allowed as a way of avoiding staffing issues caused by quarantining and also to guarantee, I think, to guarantee full-time in-person instruction in the near future. The state prioritized vaccinating school staff over workers in other fields, many of whom have been back to full schedules in dense settings for months or never left them in the first place. And number 3, we're starting to see the negative impacts that school closure is having on young people. I'm going to quote, it's from an older article. It's from Aaron Hawley. It was printed in June 2020 in National Review Online, but it has some good statistics in it. So a new CDC study shows that 40% of young adults have experienced symptoms of depression or anxiety in the last month. So that would have been the month of May of last year. The National Center for Health Statistics asked questions modified from the Patient Health Questionnaire and from the Generalized Anxiety Disorder Scale. In answering the following questions, 40% of students scored at levels associated with diagnoses of major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder. Some of these students indicated that they had felt down or hopeless, at least some of the time. Others indicated that in the past week, they'd frequently been anxious and unable to stop worrying. Our young people were not in a great position before the pandemic. According to a 2018 American Psychological Association report, Gen Z was the most likely age group to report poor mental health. A As policymakers consider options to reopen and revitalize the economy, they should not leave our youth out of their calculations. Generation Z is struggling. They may not contribute this year to the COVID-19 death toll, but unless something is done soon, many will be casualties of the shutdown. And then finally, just anecdotally in conversations I've had with teachers, I know many teachers and staff, they feel dispirited in their inability to fully engage in their professions and to properly assist the students they're committed to serving. And I'm very grateful for the teachers who really have, and other staff at the schools who've gone above and beyond in the last year to try to work under these circumstances. So finally, my personal view is that the state should revise its rules to allow schools to make the transition to full-time instruction if they feel it is in the best interest of their staff and students. This would necessarily require a change to the state mandated 6-foot spacing rule on buses and within classrooms. I also want to call on the public to do what we need to do to make full-time reopening possible. That means getting vaccinated when it's your turn, being gracious to school and public health officials who are working within parameters that they have no say in, and using your voice to ask your representatives in Albany to implement these modest changes. That's all I have. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
Jerry
you.
indulging me to use that time. So thanks again.
This is not really our committee, so I guess what I would like to do is refer it to appropriate committee, and I think that might be Andrea's. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan.
We're going to talk about, vaccination and some COVID updates in a few minutes anyway, so sure.
Okay, do we need a motion to move it to Andrea's committee?
Jerry, I don't really have any motion attached to this. I more just wanted to read this into the record. I don't know if.
Well, for discussion,
Okay.
further discussion. So it's not, the big thing, it's not our committee, so we'll move it over to the other one. And then if they want to have discussion, they can. Is there any other thing that we need to take care of? I think we're done. We've got everything okay. As for adjourn, a motion to adjourn, Dick? Well, I guess he's busy. We have a
I'll
motion
make
to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Ron, we have a second?
I'll second. Ian.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Andrea, whenever you are, actually, I think we're waiting for Ashley Waite.
Should we go ahead and approve the minutes of the last committee meeting?
Yeah, you can go ahead and call it to order.
Okay, I'll call the committee meeting to order of the Health and Human Services. I would like a motion to approve the February 16th, 2021 Health and Human Services Committee minutes, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And could I have a second?
Phil.
Thanks, Phil. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Is Ashley with us now?
She is not.
Is Pat Freilich with us? Maybe we could do that. Okay. We will do a Memorial Week presentation from Pat Freilich.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Pat.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So Ryan wanted me to bring the background and backstory in regards to the pandemic Memorial Week. And Connor's going to run my slides for me. So the first slide, I guess just to kind of give you the background, is the idea stemmed from working with the public health department and during the case investigations, hearing so many people who appreciated the care and concern that they got from the county, from the public health department, from each other, from their neighbors and families. I mean, people would just share their stories of how they were helped, and really felt that during this time that they were being taken care of. Next slide. So it was very, very important to recognize that this is an opportunity to pause and reflect. Wasn't necessarily celebratory, but we really wanted to balance acknowledging people's lives were touched. People had lost people. They'd been ill themselves. And then we also heard stories of people being grateful. So how to express their thanks to the many businesses and essential workers that really kept the county going over for a year. Next slide. So you're looking at the committee members, and it really was, I think we met 5 times in a very short amount of time. And we really tried to have a reflection of different people within the county. And people really got behind this. They were very creative, supporting this. And it was just a real easy thing to do. And I think that everybody that we kind of had talked with were feeling like they were able to express themselves and to really contribute back to the community. We also were challenged by the fact that we had to do it in a socially distant manner. So how would we be able to develop things that people could participate in without like having a gathering or whatnot? And I think we came up with some pretty useful and innovative ideas. Next slide. So I got a shout out to Jenna and Brittany at the IDA, because they're a couple of very creative and innovative young women, and they really helped us assist our ways to do stuff virtually. It's just not necessarily beyond Zoom, a skill set with many of the participants. Next slide. All right. So again, balancing being respectful, being mindful, and acknowledging those that we've lost, and how could we do that? Pastor Lori got with other members of the clergy within the county, and tonight at 7 o'clock we'll be broadcasting a commemorative service intended to pause and reflect and offer a message of hope. We also encouraging people to share their stories, because there's a lot of stories out there. There was a lot of small pockets of people trying to help each other out. So ways that we could get people to express that, say thank you. Saturday, we were at the Lions Times Square Four Corners Park, decorated that with our blue color and our forget-me-not flower. And there's a location where a person can go write a message on a tag we've got in mailboxes down there, pick up some seeds and hang that on the fence. Just be able to say thank you, be able to express, that they've lost somebody or how they coped. Next slide. We also wanted to acknowledge the resiliency of the community. Ryan and I were talking last week, and we were commenting on everybody's willingness to, not only help, but it's been a year long, and being able to maintain that commitment and that willingness to help each other out. And that really reflects, I think, the county of Lewis County, culture of Lewis County. Next slide. Essential workers. I mean, the other side of this is we had to function, and we had to function under a lot of pressure and changes and doing stuff that we just didn't understand or necessarily know right away how to do. So we also are encouraging people to wear blue, say thank you to your essential workers, buy local, have a meal, reach out to your neighbors, see how they're doing. Little little ways that people can actively participate. Next slide. And, you know, I think I went over most of this. Yep. Next slide. So again, it's just an opportunity for everyone can get involved somehow, whether it is decorating your home, your school or business, and with the intent that you're honoring somebody that you've lost, saying thank you. And what we're encouraging people to do is take those pictures of whatever you've created and then send them to me. And we're actually going to have 3 prizes, one for the best business, best individual, and best school. And we had some generous donations to be able to give people the $100 of the Chamber County dollars. And I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. That was very heart and warm, touching my heart.
Oh, good.
Yes, thank you so much.
Andrea, Ashley Way is on now, so.
Okay, we are ready for her. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to give you all an update with where we're at with the COVID vaccine here in Lewis County. So to date, we've got about 5,700 residents have their first dose. That's about 29% of our adult population. And another 3,100 residents have their second dose, which is about 16% of our adult population. Public Health has administered about 2,000 first doses and another 1,100 second doses. This week, we're receiving 400 doses of Moderna and 200 doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is the most that we've received to date in 1 week. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be used to vaccinate our homebound individuals. We've worked with relevant partners to come up with a list of those homebound individuals, as well as caregivers or other household individuals who are also eligible for the vaccine to go to their homes and vaccinate. So we have nurses that are all set up to travel around the county to do that starting tomorrow. We're holding 3 clinics this week. We'll have one in Croghan, one in Osceola, and one in Turin. And I'm going to share a map with you all. And let me know when you can see that.
Got it.
Okay. So you can see down here in the southern end of the county is where we're lacking vaccine uptake. So we're trying to focus down there this week with getting the vaccine, and we will continue to utilize this map to plan future clinics as well as our registration list that we have. We have had 2,800 individuals sign up on our wait list. As of today, we have 720 that are currently on our wait list that we're working our way down through. We're finding a lot of times when we're calling these individuals to schedule their appointment, many of them have already received the vaccine, which is great news. But it's also causing a lot more work because that's a lot more calls to fill our slots. Now that more individuals are eligible for the vaccine and the vaccine supply is becoming more plentiful, we're having to ramp up our public education to make sure the public knows who's currently eligible, and also the safety, effectiveness, and the importance of the vaccine. So we started a little bit of that last week. We will continue to push those messages out in the weeks and months to come in order to get as many eligible residents vaccinated as possible. Does anybody have any questions for me about that? Okay.
Hey, Ashley,
Ashley.
we
I'm
talked
sorry.
earlier about getting more people from Jerry's neck of the woods there, Lewis and Osceola. We spoke earlier today and you told me that there was an uptick. Can you give Jerry a little update on that?
There's was certainly a number of individuals from that area that had registered just recently to receive the vaccine. So more individuals than what we had in, I would say, the days prior have registered to become vaccinated, which is great. So that's what we want to see. So whatever happened to encourage that, continue to do that with all of your constituents, I would ask, please.
I know Jerry and Larry have been talking it up, so that's good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ashley.
Ashley, do you need anybody to assist up at the turn one? I'd be more than happy to volunteer.
Okay, I will pass that message along to Joe. He is in charge of all of our staffing for our clinics, but I will let him know that you're interested.
Okay, hopefully he'll call.
Okay.
Ashley, I'm sorry I missed the first part of your presentation, but where are you going to hold the clinics?
We're doing one in Krogan. I'll first tell you how we decided upon where we're holding them. We went through our wait list, looked at specific townships that have signed up to receive the vaccine, and did number of doses to be administered at each location based on that. So we'll be in Krogan on Thursday, and then on Friday we'll be in Osceola and Turin.
Thank you.
Great.
My other
Great.
question is, in Osceola in particular, there's part of the geography that isn't covered at all.
Yep.
Is that indicative that nobody lives there, or why isn't there any coloring in those spots?
I've asked it's the North Country Vaccine Hub that put this map together for us based on the data that we are sending to them every week on individuals vaccinated by zip code. I'm unclear as to why that area of the county is not shaded, and they have not gotten back to me yet with the reasoning for that. But when I do have an answer for that, I will let you know.
They get back a certain distance, Ashley, and it changes into Camden address, and it's the same way up here in West Light, and it changes to a Boonville address even though they live in Lewis County. And that might be throwing you off.
That could be. So in some of the other areas of the map, you'll see it extends into some counties that are not in the North Country region. So I can ask them specifically to include those zip codes. That might be why they're not including them, thinking that they're not part of our county. So that's a good idea.
Okay, any other questions for Ashley?
I can share my screen real quick if you want to see zip code data from last week. We haven't run it from this week, but maybe last week's.
Sure.
Ashley's got to stop her screen share first.
It's not. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
You're good. So this is from last week, but you can see Camden has at 8. So that would be that one of those areas there. And then what was the other one, Jerry? Boonville had 40. West Leiden, 76.
Yeah, but just outside of town, Ryan, you don't make it a mile, it goes into Boonville addresses. That's the way they get their mail.
May I have your attention, please? The fire.
Okay, so these are just Lewis County residents. So then that would be this category here. We've had 40 residents with a Boonville address get vaccinated, but that was last week. There's probably been more since, so. Camden 8.
Well, I'm glad we're reaching out to those areas because they definitely need our support.
Some of the Boonville one could have been South Louis teachers too, because when I was up at Seaville, we had some South Louis teachers in there
Oh,
who
good.
lived in Boonville.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it, unless you guys have any other questions for me.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate the information.
Welcome.
Keep up the good work.
Yes, keep up the good work. Okay. Cassandra, are we ready to do dockets?
The first one is resolution authorizing an agreement between Lewis County Department of Social Services and West Publishing Corporation's Clear software subscription for the purpose of search technology to locate people and businesses and authenticate their identities for the period beginning April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that resolution passes. Next resolution.
Whoops, sorry.
Go
Resolution
ahead.
authorizing renewal agreement between Lewis County Department of Social Services and Liberty Translations and Interpreters LLC to provide trained on-site interpreter services, telephonic and translation services for the period of March 3rd, 2021 through March 3rd, 2023.
Any questions or discussion?
Is there a cost associated with this?
Of course.
Yes, Dick, there is, and it's based on whether it's telephonic or whether it's in person. But they have HIPAA compliant translators and OCA compliant translators that help us. So the price depends on which kind of service we're using.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries, or resolution carries.
Resolution authorizing memorandum of understanding between Lewis County Department of Social Services and Snowbelt Housing Company for the purpose of invoicing and receiving reimbursement of Code Blue expenses pursuant to OTDA funding and requirements for the 2020/2021 Code Blue season and any future Code Blue seasons where the reimbursement of said expenses remains through Snowbelt Housing Company.
Any questions or discussion?
Is Code Blue the FEMA thing for roof disasters and stuff?
No, it's below the 32 degrees and people who need a place to stay, I believe.
Oh, okay. Good.
Correct, Andrea, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Resolution carries.
Resolution to proclaim the County of Lewis as a Purple Heart community, honoring the service and sacrifice of our nation's men and women in uniform and designating August 7th of each year as the day in Lewis County to remember and recognize veterans who have received the Purple Heart Medal.
Amen.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Nay. Resolution carries.
Resolution authorizing annual agreements between the County of Jefferson and the County of Lewis for purposes of administering WIOA and entering into agreements to organize and implement workforce development in the Jefferson-Lewis areas pursuant to WIOA for the retroactive term July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Resolution is approved.
Resolution authorizing separate agreements between Lewis County Youth Bureau and Victims Assistance Center of Jefferson County and Lewis County Opportunities to provide the described identified support and outreach services by each under the Safe Harbor New York Project Program.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Resolution carries.
Okay, we have one motion, and that is a motion to authorize Social Services Commissioner Jennifer Jones to refill one full-time social services program examiner position due to promotion effective March 22nd, 2021.
I'll move that.
Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? If not, this concludes our committee.
Andrea, can I interject just one thing real quick? This is
Oh,
Phil.
sure, absolutely.
The other day I was in Walmart and there was this lady with quite an older gentleman, even older than me, actually. And she was shopping with him and she was helping him along. She was a, middle-aged gal and he was, again, quite old. And it was really an awesome thing to see. And he was having a ball, and she was so good with him. And I just wanted to say that I think we support that in some way. And I just wanted to mention that. That was such a nice thing to see. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. It sounds like it. And it's so nice to people show compassion for other people and that they're kind to other people.
Yes, yes, it is.
I also, before we close, I would like to encourage everyone to please sign up for your vaccinations for COVID. Go to the county website. It's very easy to sign up. And I guess, is there anything else for us, Cassandra?
Nope, we just need a motion for adjournment.
Okay. Could I have a
Andrea,
motion?
Before we
Yes.
adjourn, I'd like to point out that last time we met, we talked about the Department of Public Works employees and getting shots.
I
Larry
believe they're
and-
on the list, aren't they?
Larry and Ryan were very instrumental since then, and they can start signing up for shots tomorrow. So thank you to Larry and Ryan for handling that.
Also, look at the medical list because some people, thanks to Lisa, she sent the list and so did Ryan. And a lot of people might come under that as well.
Vicky Round, 5.
Statistically, if you look at what we know about the health demographics in Lewis County, probably 60% of people are eligible right now to get their vaccine.
Yes.
So, we've got vaccine, we've got openings still this week. So it's very important that people sign up and if they're interested, odds are you're probably eligible at this point. So sign up and come see us.
Also, if the clinics that the county is doing, if those don't work for you, JCC has been doing clinics every week, and also people are getting in pretty quickly to Kinney's, and I hear that that's a very smooth process as well. The Kinney's in Lowville, Carthage, or Watertown.
So can anyone go to the Jefferson County JCC clinic? We can go
Yes.
there? Lewis County people
Yes.
can go there. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Is Ashley still on, Ryan?
I am.
Actually, can a person who's undergoing chemotherapy, can they get the COVID shot?
That's something that they should discuss with their doctor.
Okay, because I do have a person that I just talked to yesterday that's undergoing chemo and wondered about the COVID shot. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I also want to make note that starting this past week, Walmart was receiving vaccine. And one thing to note with the pharmacies, so Kinney's and Walmart, they can only vaccinate 60 plus or teachers as of right now. So those are both local options.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Or discussion? Okay, I would ask for a motion, or did we do that already? Get our motion?
Nope,
To
not yet.
adjourn. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Tom, if you want to give me a minute or two, I'm going to try to reach Cassie Buell because she's.
Okay. Are we ready yet?
Cassie Buell and or Kevin Brulard should be jumping on here any minute. If you want to go ahead and get started, Tom, by calling the meeting to order and then doing the minutes, they should
Okay.
be done.
I'd like to call the Finance and Rules Committee meeting to order. And I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes of our February 16th committee meeting.
Make that motion.
Greg? I'll get a second.
Ian will second.
Ian? All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are accepted. And now we move on to presentations.
I can go first while we wait for, maybe we do have them. Cassie, can you speak this time?
Can you hear me?
Yay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Cassie.
I'm
Welcome.
so proud of myself. I fixed it and Connor tried to troubleshoot it when I went down there to Ryan's office and he couldn't fix it. So I was pretty proud of my IT skills.
Good job.
I'm not sure how I did it. So,
Okay, well, you have the floor.
okay. Should we, Kevin just ran to the bathroom and he's doing the presentation on the climate smart communities. Do we want to wait for him or do we want to go into the Smart Growth Fund?
I can do contract real quick if you want, Tom.
Yep, go for it.
So last week, I asked you guys to consider if you would be open to kind of taking a second look at the way we do contracts, maybe setting a threshold to take some of the smaller resolutions out from, cluttering kind of some of our board time. And so Joan, Eric, Cassandra, myself got together, and then we kind of pitched an idea to Larry. And so we'd like to pitch this idea to you as well. The idea would be this, that any contract under $10,000 can be signed by the chairman of the board without a resolution, but all contracts signed by the chairman without a resolution shall be reported on the list of claims every month, so that the legislators are still reviewing and seeing every contract that is signed. It's just not a docket item that requires legislative action. So that is what we are proposing, but it's not, you'll notice it's not in resolution form because I wanted to, I didn't want to put you guys in a bad position to have to, vote something down you weren't comfortable with. So we're still open for discussion, and we can turn it into a resolution next month if you want. It's obviously not something that's any hurry. So.
Well, when you say it's gonna be on the list of claims, will it be under a separate category so it'll jump out at us?
Yeah, the list of claims is actually a report that's produced on Munis, so it'll just be a separate piece of paper stapled to the back.
I'm not on this committee, but I would just like to say, a few years ago, we had an issue with a department head spending quite a bit of money, if you all recall. And we weren't too happy about it. That was my thought. That's it.
Well, we could always lower the threshold to 5,000.
I think that's what it is.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but this does not give that ability to the department heads. It gives you the ability of allowing me to sign the contract, but it still goes to the board for review. It would be a list of claims rather than a separate resolution, but they still review it ahead of time. Is that correct?
Not ahead of time, no. That's the critical difference. You know, we're basically saying that items under $10,000, contracts under $10,000, we don't need a full movement of the Board of Legislators. We are giving the chairman authority to sign those without a resolution, basically.
Okay.
But we would have the same contract process take place where the department head would have to give the county manager, the clerk of the board, and my office copies of the contract, the time period. Then Ryan has the ability to make sure it was in the budget. If it wasn't in the budget, obviously it's going to come to the board. But for very routine and renewal kinds of contracts, for DSS, for instance, that we have every year, we would still have them go through the process, send us the contracts. They still have to be reviewed for content and all. It's just trying to make the signing process a little quicker because, you know, we're constantly asking, when is the chairman going to be in? Is the chairman going to be in? Can we get the vice chairman in? And so for these kinds of matters, we just thought it might be easier to let those contracts go through. We would keep a list of them every month. As Ryan said, it would be on the list of claims, but they will be reviewed prior to Larry signing.
Will they be reviewed by you prior to getting on the list of claims?
Yeah, Joan reviews all the contracts.
So just to be clear, nothing would get on the list of claims until money is expended. So the contract as it's signed will go as an addendum to the list of claims, but money that's, you know, in terms of the actual, what you see now, that's money that goes out the door. So that'll stay the same.
So contract is the
basically,
key
it would go
word.
From the department head through. Okay.
I didn't hear you, Phil, sorry.
I thought I was interrupting Andrea and apologize.
I'm sorry, go
so
ahead.
So it would go from the department head through legal to you, Ryan, and then on to Larry. So it would have a pretty substantial review, and as well as Cassandra, right?
The only difference is it won't end up as a resolution. It'll just bypass that and go right to Larry's desk.
But all you guys are gonna see it first.
And if I could add, it has to be a budgeted expense. If it's outside of budget, that's another level of approval it has to go through.
Right, okay.
Contract is the key word. Yes.
Give it it'll still be out, the money will be out the door after we know about it. After we see the list of claims, the money will already be appropriated.
Well, the money's already appropriated. I think what you're saying is, say, one that comes to mind that drives me nuts every year is we do a resolution to enter into an agreement with a company to check all of our fire extinguishers. So rather than setting that up 2 months in advance so that it goes through committee, then goes through the legislators, then gets signed by the chairman, it will just go through our process internally, get signed by the chairman, and potentially, yes, Greg, that service could be provided, before the list of claims is sent out. But you'd still note that the contract was signed by the chairman.
Yeah, we couldn't do anything about it after that.
Correct.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah, but let me just also add that most times, 90% of the times, we require when the board adopts and approves a contract, we may have gotten the contract and started the review process. We typically want the other entity to sign off first before the county signs off. So Greg, a lot of times the contract is approved, the money is not going out in the list of claims that same month because we usually wait until we have a signed contract from the vendor before we have Larry signed.
But that doesn't necessarily happen every time.
No, there are some times where, because of a time frame and an emergency, we have Larry sign before it goes to the other side. But the money doesn't get sent out then until we have a signed agreement.
Another example, the reason why this came up was especially during the pandemic, there was a couple times, I remember specifically when the committee had a really great idea to do the advertisements. And if we would have waited to bring a contract back through committee, back through the board, we would have missed the opportunity to get it done. And so there's times like that with small amounts under 10,000 that we need a little more agility, and having everything take at least 6 weeks is
how did 10,000 become the number?
It was
picked
just
it out of the air, or?
Yes.
Yep, picked it out of the air. I thought.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it to you guys for discussion.
Just for discussion, would 5,000 or 7,500 make people feel more comfortable and accomplish somewhat of what we want?
Well, I think 5,000, I'd feel a lot more comfortable.
The reason I came up with 10,000 was because Jefferson County has a rule of thumb that they won't discuss anything under under 10,000. They don't feel it's worthy of.
That just tweaks me even more, Ryan.
Okay.
I'm done comparing us with Jefferson County or any other county. This is Lewis County.
Okay. I'm not suggesting that we never discuss anything under 10,000. I'm just saying that's what their rule of thumb is.
Well, look at how much better we came out during the pandemic than they did. So there you go.
Tom, if you don't mind me just adding, I think we talked about this with our budget transfers policy a month ago.
Yep.
$10,000 is 0.0002 of our budget, annual budget.
I don't care if it's that little.
So I might just suggest maybe you could talk about $20,000. I mean, you can go either direction, but it's kind of arbitrary.
Stay out of it.
What about other committees?
Out of it, I'm an elected official, just giving you my 2 cents worth.
Well, sometimes that doesn't help.
Any comments from other committee members?
Well, I guess if you want to look at it,
problem.
Tom, if you want to look at it in the views of a taxpayer. $10,000 is a lot of money to a lot of taxpayers. I mean, I don't even think there's not too many of us that could say, oh, I can throw $10,000 out the window.
I think about it in terms of governance, in terms of trying to get the most out of our time together. We only have 12 meetings a year and then 12 committee meetings. So that's 48 opportunities.
Well,
hold on, Greg, let me finish real quick. That's 48 opportunities that we have. And I know you guys are busy and you have things going on in your lives That's 48 opportunities that we have to discuss the needs of this community, okay? And the big things we can do to address those needs and make things better. Focusing on things that are under, under 10,000 is not always, in my opinion, the best use of our time. That's where this is coming from.
Brian, Jerry, I do have one question for you. We're talking about like new contracts or ones that are already put in place?
Either.
Okay, thank
There'd
you.
be any contract. So it's whatever you guys want. I mean, we can continue how we're doing. It's just a suggestion to try to, elevate our conversation to things that have more of an impact on the community. That's all.
Well, currently, what is the level, Brian?
$0.
Well, there you go. 5 is get you halfway.
Okay, I don't care. Whatever you guys want.
Does the committee feel comfortable at 5,000? At least to start with?
Sure.
I do, yeah.
All right, why don't we work something up on that?
Okay.
It's a step.
Yep, good. Okay, we'll bring something back next month then in resolution form, all right?
Okay.
Okay.
We thank you. All right, Cassie, ready now?
Yep, I will direct the Clean Energy Communities presentation over to Kevin. He'll be taking over that in the CCA discussion.
Okay, thank you.
So, hi everyone, I'm Kevin Briard. I don't think I've met you all yet, but I joined the planning department as a community development specialist in October. And I've been coordinating our Clean Energy Communities program. Community choice aggregation is a subcomponent of that program. So I kind of have these as one presentation. I'll share my screen quick. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So kind of what I'm going to do is just give an overview of the new program. I think most of you will remember Lewis County was the first clean energy community, or designated clean energy community in the North Country back in 2017. So this is a second round of funding. And I'll just go over a path for Lewis County as well as our towns and villages to access funding. So New York State doesn't really do us any favors in how they name programs. So there's the Climate Smart Communities program and there's the Clean Energy Communities program. So just a brief overview. I like to think of individual cost-saving energy actions, whether it's upgrading your HVAC system in your town hall or installing electric vehicle charging station. Those types of actions make up the Clean Energy Communities program. And then, okay, so thanks, Connor. It's the manager slides. How do I do that? So I'm just going to try to make my display clear for you guys. Whoops, that's worse. All right, I can't figure it out, unfortunately. Is that's still visible enough for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for letting me know, Connor. And
Maybe you need Cassie's IT expertise over there.
I have 3 screens going. One of them it's full, and one it's not. Maybe let me see.
Kevin, I think if you unshare it and share just a difference, there you go.
There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, here we are. Thanks for your patience. And then with the Climate Smart Communities is a much broader program. It includes everything in clean energy communities, but it also includes things like complete streets policies, farmers markets. It's a much larger program. But the funny thing is if you get Climate Smart Communities, it counts for points towards clean energy communities, which is why I'm bringing it up. Okay. So before there was just one type of grant, it was first come, first serve. For this round, all municipalities are eligible for a point-based grant. And funding is open until December 31st, 2025. So You know, if it's up to, you know, again, on a first come, first served basis. And then non-designated municipalities are eligible for a $5,000 grant for completing any 4 action items, regardless of points. So for Lewis County, that's everybody besides the county itself and the town of Leiden. So the point-based grants, 3,000 points is the minimum threshold for communities with less than 40,000 people. There's 40 awards in the North Country, and these are cumulative grants. So ultimately, 4 communities will receive 100,000, 6 communities will receive 30,000, and 30. Let's do some math. 30 communities will receive 10,000. And if you get say you get a $10,000 grant, you can invest that in something to, you know, get up to the points to then get the $20,000 grant. So it's kind of a, you can use it to pay as you go. And these are the 13 eligible action items under the program. The 2 that are highlighted in red are only eligible to towns, cities, and villages. So Lewis County cannot complete those, but some of, you know, our municipalities can, as long as they have streetlights. And I'll kind of do a breakdown of some of these in later slides. So this is kind of the status of the North Country, just to see where towns are. So town of Waddington is 1,100 points. So no one has yet earned a grant. So, you know, there is time for us to act, even for the municipalities that haven't started any of this yet. As you see, everyone's kind of done the same actions: the benchmarking, clean fleets, the streetlights, and the solar permit. So community choice aggregation, which we'll talk about, is kind of the new big thing. So this is our current progress. These are the 4 actions we completed in the last round. We'll be updating our energy code enforcement training. I'm working on a report on our energy benchmarking, and at that point, we'll have 800 points. So community choice aggregation is the largest of all the action items. Again, it's only eligible for our towns and villages. Basically, it's a program that allows governments to choose where their energy comes from for their community. So it's a procurement model that lets virtually all homes and small businesses, as well as, you know, religious institutions, things like that, choose between the default utility supplier and 100% renewable energy. So currently, the Public Service Commission and state is responsible for, or as well as the utility of, you know, where the default supply comes from. This would allow you to, you know, pool demand and negotiate a more competitive rate. Typically, there's a 5 to 10% discount. If anyone's heard of community solar, it's kind of the exact same concept, but instead of, you know, each customer going out and enrolling in a program and having to sign a contract, the municipality takes on the, you know, the negotiating, as well as the consumer protection of the contract, because you know, no resident would actually be held into participating because it's an opt-out basis. So ultimately, residents still choose which supply they get their energy from, but it creates a second choice that's 100% renewable. This is kind of an overview of the implementation process. On average, it takes about 9 to 12 months for a municipality to enroll in community choice aggregation. So, you know, it starts by enacting a local law and then working with a CC administrator. There's 4 in New York State, but one of them only operates in Westchester. I have a map on the next slide to kind of go over those communities that have already been doing it. There's a public outreach education period. So there's a lot of upfront steps before any municipality is actually committed to, you know, doing CCA. The companies, they make their money on the back end, so there's no financial transactions, and it's very transparent. So, you know, residents would have plenty of opportunities to ask questions and learn about the program for any town or village that chooses to go through with it. So this is the current, or almost current landscape of community choice aggregation in New York State. So all the green is, you know, where it's been passed, but they're not part of a program. The red, blue, and purple are 3 community choice aggregation companies that could work up in Lewis County: Good Energy, Jules Assets, and Mega. I know multiple municipalities have already had presentations from Juul and Good Energy. And Sustainable or Westchester was kind of the pilot for the state. And in their first 2.5 years, they saved $17 million for 110,000 homes and small businesses. All right. So on the county level, the largest action is the New York Energy Code or New York Stretch Energy Code. So this applies to residences as well as commercial buildings. New York State is trying to incentivize early adoption of this code. It's believed that, you know, in the next energy cycle in 2023, this is what will be adopted. So they're offering points as well as grant funding for any municipality that adopts it now.
So Kevin, specifically readily adaptable local energy codes, is that reflective of new construction? They're expecting, you know, the building, the insulation or the building efficiency to be elevated even beyond what it is now?
Yeah, it would be more efficiency. And for new construction, something like what's the word I'm looking for? An addition, something like that. Yeah.
So what's the potential cost for, say, on an average, say on a $300,000 house?
Sure.
What does that add to the cost of, you know, building the house?
It's a great question. So it's they estimate a 1 to 2% incremental cost. So for that case, if, you know, up to maybe 3,000 to 5,000. The improved efficiency, you know, the payback life, they estimate 3 to 7 years, depending on where people go with it. For the larger commercial properties, there's a program called CPACE, which is kind of on one of my next slides, that they would be able to finance any of the improvements or even above that through that, which is a very unique financing mechanism that's, you know, separate from a loan. But what was I going to say? A handful of communities in the Mid-Hudson have already adopted this, and NYSERDA has a specific energy code expert they've contracted with who can give municipal presentations. Ward and the other code enforcement officers and I, you know, heard his initial presentation. So kind of at the end of this for next steps, that's something I put on there, was to, you know, gauge your interest to see if you'd like to hear more, because, you know, the, you know, codes are pretty extensive. So it's good to have a pro kind of break it down. And so in terms of this being an action, it's open to the first 100 municipalities in New York State out of less than 40,000 people. There's still plenty of those grants available. And this one is time bound, whereas the whole program goes till 2025. This is only open until the end of this year. And it comes with a $5,000 grant plus 1,200 points to count towards those larger point-based grants. The next one, which I was just talking about, CPACE financing. CPACE stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. There's a nonprofit called the Energy Improvement Corporation. I believe you actually passed a law authorizing this program in 2019. We're currently working on the municipal agreement. But once it's in action, you know, eligible projects, which be, you know, commercial projects larger than 200,000, could utilize this funding for their windows, their lighting, heating, HVAC systems, things like that. And instead of a loan, there's a lien on the property, and it's paid back kind of through property taxes. And it's in the way, like, sorry, it's I'm still learning how to explain this model, but there, you know, you guys passed it 2 years ago. There's no actual liability to the county. We're just trying to set that up. And once that municipal agreement is made, we work with developers and to just have a project actually utilize the financing, and that would give an additional 300 points. And naturally, Lewis is already on board to help with that outreach to the business community. Another one is community energy campaigns. So kind of how community choice aggregation, you know, passes some savings on to customers. there's different incentives for clean heating and cooling technology, as well as community solar. So what this does is through an RFQ, request for qualifications, municipalities can work with NYSERDA approved installers for any of these technologies and kind of just do some public outreach events, whether, it's as in the era of Zoom, kind of having a meeting and letting people present whether it's a ground source heat pump or energy efficiency retrofits. Ideally, you work with local installer partners. So this has an economic development piece too, to help, our local contractors, get more work and help residents navigate the different tax and financial incentives that go into that. And you receive funding if you achieve a minimum customers threshold, as well as points towards that overall points for the point-based grants. Like I mentioned, climate smart communities also counts as an action item. It counts as 600 points. Some things, just for context of what we've already done, the LED interior light upgrades that you've done in the courthouse and other buildings, that earned us points. The power purchase agreement with the county solar array, the charging station at DSS, and the brownfield cleanup in Lions Falls, those all earned us points. We're currently working on a county government greenhouse gas inventory with graduate students at SUNY ESF. Tim Hund is working on a fleet inventory just of our current vehicles. We're working on a buy local campaign with Naturally Lewis. You've probably seen the signs at the Shop Local Lewis. And I'm also working on a climate vulnerability assessment with soil and water and emergency management. And there's an upcoming submission deadline on July 2nd that we're hoping to make. Besides counting for this, Climate Smart Communities is a grant program that, when it's open, has pretty significant funding for municipalities to for infrastructure projects. Say, for example, moving a building out of a floodplain, or enhancing your drinking water infrastructure. Basically, just making your community more resilient to the impacts of climate change. So this is kind of an overview of the handful of actions I just talked about. I've structured these ones because they don't have an actual upfront cost for the county. And if we pursued them as such, we could expect to have between 3,200, 3,500 points, which would qualify us for a $10,000 or up to $25,000 in grant funding. Did anyone have any questions about these actions before we move forward?
No.
All right. Okay, so kind of
back on the going to a higher efficiency rating for new construction. To spend 2% of a construction cost, let's say it's a $300,000 house that you're building. So 2% of that is $6,000. They say your efficiency is going to be 11% greater. I use 10% just for that you're going to save on your energy costs. So if it costs you $1,000 a year to heat your house, and you improve it by 10%, that's going to save you $100 a year. It would take you 60 years to recoup your $6,000 investment. So I don't see that little part of it being a viable economic answer.
Sure. Yeah, I think having a presentation from Mike DeWine would, break down the financing on that a little bit more clearly. The stretch code is probably, of the 13 actions, the one I have the least experience with. So I'm just trying to, put the information out there and gauge your interest on a follow-up conversation from a professional. All right, so I'll move forward. So kind of with that grant funding, the way it's structured is, because it's a clean energy communities program, grants can only be used for clean energy and energy efficiency. So some other eligible action items are a clean heating and cooling demo site. So kind of how at the courthouse, we have the visual monitor displaying the energy production from our county solar array. It'd be the same idea as if you install a ground or air source heat pump or a a solar hot water heater at your building, you know, you could just have some sort of informational display for the public. The same thing, clean energy upgrades, any different options. And because we already do energy benchmarking, we can document a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And then clean fleets, I know that's not something we're maybe looking at in the near future, but they expect to have, you know, 2 million electric cars on the road in our state by 2030. So, you know, thinking in the future about electric vehicle charging stations and, you know, adding another electric vehicle to our fleet at some point, just because, you know, this program is open until 2025. So that landscape may start to change. And in this, you know, optimistic best case scenario, I just kind of outlined what that would mean in terms of the grant funding. Potentially that would, you know, get us all the way up to the 5,000 point mark, which would come with the $100,000 grant plus the 3 different action grants for $115,000. So kind of in terms of moving forward, we've put together a community choice aggregation RFQ. The reason we did that is the process is pretty you know, hard to follow, and in terms of smaller communities, it can be helpful to move forward together to further pool demand, and just to kind of help our municipalities with some of that consumer protection, doing an initial vetting process of the different community choice administrators. For example, getting references from other municipalities that have worked with them, have their pricing schemes, whether they can guarantee, you know, the same price for multiple municipalities is kind of some of the information that we would like to collect, and then, you know, have some partnership with an administrator that we think is viable. And then in terms of the stretch code, just seeing if you're interested in a follow-up presentation from, you know, like a nice sort of energy code expert who can kind of explain the program. And then, you know, we'll be moving forward with the CPACE financing when that comes out in our business community, as well as looking into our community energy campaigns.
So, Tom, we're looking for some feedback on 2 things in particular here. And we're going to talk more about the community choice aggregation in a minute. But the stretch code in particular, I talking with Kevin and Cassie before, I knew you guys would have you know, lots of questions about this. And so the first question is, how much time do you want to spend on it? Do you want to get a presentation from Mike DeWine from NYSERDA, who can, you know, walk you through some of the details, or is that something we're not interested in pursuing? So I think that's the first thing that we're looking for a little bit of feedback on is, you know, how do you want to push with this stretch code, or is it not something that we're interested in right now?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it's worth looking at a little bit further. What are some of the other committee members' thoughts?
I was wondering if we have reached out to our towns and any of them have expressed an interest in looking at this.
The stretch code, you mean, Phil?
Any of this, the whole gambit of stuff here.
Yeah, we're going to get into more specifics with the towns here with the community choice aggregation. And Kevin has been really pounding the pavement, getting out to the towns in his time here. So the answer to that question is yes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Kevin, do you want to add anything?
You want to add anything, Kevin?
Oh, sorry. For some reason, my name cut out when you said that, Ryan. In terms of the community choice aggregation, we've spoken. The town of Turin had a direct presentation with one of them, and I know Louville and the Raycog communities, which I know spans Jefferson County. So Copenhagen was on that. So we have, you know, received interest in that. I think people are looking for some guidance, you know, in getting through the process, just because it is a new program. 2016 was when it became legal in New York State, and the program's really focused on the Finger Lakes and Hudson Valley, where there's just, you know, larger populations. But the way the program works now, you know, North Country communities are starting to, get interest. And just with the context of this Clean Energy Communities program, I think it would be helpful because there are options for doing this without the renewable energy component, and that would not qualify for this program, and that would, prevent those communities from accessing grant funds for this if they didn't have the guidance on how to ensure that it was a renewable program.
Yeah, I'll set the table a little bit before we get into the community choice aggregation, but just to put a button on the stretch code, is that something we want to go forward with or not?
Could we just review that slide again to see what exactly was that encompassed?
Yeah.
And maybe it would be helpful to know that one of the reasons why we've brought this forward as a possibility as an early adopter is because it's expected that it would be a requirement several years down the road anyway, 2 to 3 years. It's expected that this is going to be the necessary energy code going forward. That's why it's called the early adopter program. Just to give you a little bit of extra context.
Thank you, Kristen.
No, what are some of the thoughts on it? Anybody got anything? We want to think about it a little bit.
My only hesitation is, being involved in some of these energy code new efficiencies is the projections of what you're going to save are never fully realized. So, the costs are never really fully recovered as anticipated by the sales pitch from the state in this case. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm just nervous about this one. That's all. The rest of it, the CCA, I fully agree with. I think that makes complete sense.
I basically agree with what Larry just said. There's so many of these things that it sounds good on the surface, but when you start calculating it out, the savings, the length of time to recoup it is just too long.
I'd be interested to hear from Mike, the NYSERDA specialist, because he's specifically working with Capital Region and North Country, and I know that these numbers are done on a statewide average. I wonder if energy efficiency savings could be higher for the North Country. I mean, I'm just speculating. I know that he is trying to give it within the context of the North Country, which I think could be helpful. He's based in the Lake George, Saratoga Springs area, so he's at least familiar.
This is Jerry, Tom. I got one question. I mean, it's not, I guess the question with us putting these in now, instead of waiting for them to come in, how detrimental would those additional costs be if we're trying to lure businesses and stuff in here? That looks like some big bucks on a decent sized building that they would have to spend. Am I wrong in asking that?
I think
that
you're right.
way?
On, I think you're right on, Jerry. That's what we've been talking about is, what's it worth and what are the consequences? I think that's you're exactly, and the comments that Larry and Tom have made are right on target. The question is, what's it worth, and do we even want to hear a presentation on it?
It's almost like we're
listening.
They're enticing us to be the lead characters to get this through early. And it may not be to our advantage, I guess I really feel it, because look how much it's going to jump for construction costs if you're trying to get an energy efficient building, especially in this environment. I mean, build to the day's standards, but don't shoot for the moon either, because it's going to be some really big bucks on these buildings.
And being the first one to step out too, you're looking at, the difference. Well, if I go 30 miles west and I'm in Jefferson County, maybe I won't have to deal with the same standards. So that's, a statement in favor of if you're going to move in that direction, do it all together at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, this particular case, I would rather not be the leader. I think it would be a detriment to construction in our area. And, they have maximized the efficiency or the energy code to the point where there's some, with foam insulation, in order to meet the standards, there's a lot of problems and issues with roof sweatings and other things that were not thought out and that we're now, it's not working out well at all. So just my thoughts.
I don't think the technology's here to take this next step. It'll be later developed.
My understanding is it doesn't require any more technology. A little bit of it is like the types of water heaters and things like that, which is where the cost comes in.
I personally don't think the technology is there to reach it within a reasonable estimate. I mean, we put all of our LED lights in. What's the next thing to put in to save? We're at the end right now, aren't we? So if somebody builds a new house, put LED lights in. There's nothing else they can put in to save more, or a building. Tell new technology. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was going to say, how much of this is already being done? Just people, building and whatnot. How much of it is kind of already happening?
I wonder if our codes department could answer that question. How many people are choosing on their own to go above and beyond the standard? You know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess at that.
That's what I was going to suggest, is maybe a follow-up conversation with Ward on that one. I know he's reviewed this code, but we're bringing this as an option because it's on the list of the next opportunities for the county to pursue. So we fully understand if it's too aggressive. And that's something that we've talked about with Ryan, with more discussions. That's why we thought, well, we'll make sure that it's known by the legislators. And if you wanted to talk about it more, we would bring in a specialist who does the program. And if not, we will move on to the next point area.
Yeah, I think right now it was very informative, and I get the general consensus from a few of us that maybe it's something we keep in the back of our mind and maybe look at a little bit further down the road.
Okay, sounds good. We've got another big initiative for you to think about today anyway, so we'll keep moving.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin and Cassie.
So before we get into this one, Kevin's going to keep going, Tom, but before we get into community choice aggregation, I want to set the table a little bit. So we have been talking a lot, and far before my time here, you guys have been talking a lot about green energy in Lewis County. We have the windmill, and even before that, we had a plethora of hydroelectric facilities in Lewis County. Now we're preparing for solar, and you guys, the board has done some excellent policy work preparing for the future development of solar in our community, which we believe is coming fast and furious down the pike. The big picture with community choice aggregation is, if Lewis County is going to be home to all of these energy producing projects, how can we ensure that our residents are capturing the value of those projects, not just in tax revenue, but in energy costs in their own homes? If you're going to build a solar facility next to my house, next to my community, how can I benefit from that? And how can our residents benefit from that? If we're going to be a net producer of energy across the whole state, then what can we do to make sure that our businesses and our residents are getting to benefit from those projects directly? And the first step is we have to be able to, as a community, be able to purchase energy together. Otherwise, this doesn't work. So this is one of the steps towards realizing my vision. And I know that's something we've all talked about, but I would love a world in Lewis County where when somebody comes here to do a solar project, they also have to sell a portion of that right to the community, and we can benefit from the energy that's being produced right here in our backyard. And so the first step towards going in that direction is this community choice aggregation. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin and Cassie to kind of bring you through the details.
Kevin, do you want to do an overview?
Cassie?
Is your microphone working? Because we all know we've had those issues today.
Yeah. Can you not hear me?
No, we can now.
Okay. So I can go back to those, the community choice aggregation slides. I condensed it, within this, presentation just for, because so many, why does every program have to have community in it? I know we love communities, but it gets repetitive with community choice aggregation, clean energy communities, and climate smart communities. But
Kevin,
again,
just a second before you go on for a minute. Dick Chartrand here. Is there any way we can move our pictures so that we can see that whole slide by whoever's able to do that?
I think that's on your end.
Pictures of us. And then you can't read the slide behind it.
Look at move your mouse or, click the view and you can move the boxes around.
Where do you want to click the view?
For me, it's in the upper right-hand corner.
Right above where your boxes are, there's 4 different selections and you can minimize the whole thing or you can adjust it if you slide it around. Do you see right above your boxes a photo?
Yeah, I do. One says show grid video. Next one.
Go all the way down to hide thumbnail video and it'll just hide it for you while we're.
Where is the hide button?
So you see the show grid video.
Yeah.
Go to the next one. It's probably highlighted blue.
Yep.
Down. The next one down is show small active speaker.
Yeah.
And then the next one down says hide thumbnail video.
There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a good day. I've learned something.
Hopefully more than just that.
Yeah. Ryan, as long as I interrupted there for a second, let me just offer something for the other legislators. The green energy, unless things have changed, is not usually the cheapest energy. And the reason it's got all these government subsidies and stuff is so that the people can build that energy. So getting us to have that energy back into our bills may not be a blessing if it's more expensive to begin with and the 10% doesn't help us.
I can say that the 10% model is based on the default utility offering. So unless someone is somehow negotiating another rate with an ESCO, it would be cheaper than whatever energy that their electricity that they're already getting. The 10% discount is on the supply, not the delivery cost. So for, we all pay the utility to maintain the power lines. That cost is, steady. But whatever your kilowatt hour consumption is, the discount would come off that. And because you're pooling the demand, you're able to negotiate that rate. The contracts typically last 2 years, and the new community solar model, allows that that discount to really be pinned on the utility rate. I've had community solar in my own home for 3 years. I worked on those programs in the southern tier in Delaware County. And I mean, we save $70 a year, which, we're not going to get rich off that, but it's a nice incentive to, do the right thing in terms of going green.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. The savings isn't going to be real great, if any, and you're saying there's going to be a little savings. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a modest savings. The incentive of these programs, like you said, is the clean energy and the sustainability of that. It's just, if they're, I think the philosophy is if you're going to have people do that, save them some money in the process to make it more palatable.
Sure.
Oh, Kevin, 15 years ago, the county paid a consultant, and I don't know where these documents are. They're somewhere in the courthouse, but so anyways, I guess my first question is the CCA process, which I totally support. Does that have to, can you do an aggregation and buy it off the market? Or are you thinking of doing a CCA and buying it off of green energy, which is generated in Lewis County?
You could do it in a local project, or it could be somewhere else in the state. Both those options are viable. And it could also include wind or hydro as well as solar.
Because as Dick points out, most of the green energy is at a higher cost than what an average household is paying for energy now. And we're also only talking about the energy side of the equation and not the formula, not the transportation. Right.
Yeah, and don't forget the other important word, Larry, aggregation. So that's where you get your savings, people coming together to buy as one.
Right. Yeah. And it's also important to note that the county cannot do a CCA. We are looking to select a CCA administrator for the entire county through an RFQ process so that we can send that CCA administrator out to our municipalities to work one-on-one with them on educating them on the benefits of being in a CCA and streamlining that particular CCA administrator so that we can vet them to send them out to the municipalities. Otherwise, it's really going to be our planning department doing all of the legwork, showing them the ropes and the programming and connecting them with companies like Jules and Mega in Green or Go Energy to set them up with that. Whereas if we enter into an RFQ, again, no money is going to be passed between any of it. It's really just to get them to go out there to educate our municipalities and show them what CCA is all about and the benefits of it.
So there's no way, all the different municipalities, the towns and villages would have to be a separate CCA aggregator. There's no way of combining all of those units into one unit.
They can do it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We took the inspiration for this RFQ also, from Ryan's vision, as well as some municipalities in Monroe County pooled their demand to do this, as well as a group in Orange and Dutchess County, the city of Poughkeepsie, and they were able, they found that helped them negotiate a better rate.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Bigger footprint.
Yeah.
The county's role is that we're just kind of looking to help get the process rolling, to get the education out there and to really advocate for it.
Kruger in Lyons Falls has been trying to come up with a community aggregation or be able to sell to a community aggregator for years. And the state they could never make it work. The state one way or another shut it down because the state really wasn't interested in existing hydropower. What they were trying to do was support and encourage new construction of wind farms and solar farms. So just a point, the Kruger has been trying to do this for 10, 15 years that I know of and can't get it done. And that source of power is far cheaper than new construction green energy. So
what about the ones that have municipal power? What's that going to do to them?
Nothing. Yeah, if you're on municipal power, it wouldn't make much sense to go with this, I don't think, because your community is already buying an aggregate. Right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Well, they're buying in Boonville's case, which is what I think Jerry's thinking of. They buy their power from a NYPA contract. It comes from Robert Moses Dam, I believe. And the only reason why they are so cheap is because the contract started in 1925 or something like that, so. But they're slowly coming up in price every year, I think.
Yeah, but on the same aspect, I mean, I guess the question is, the ones that have municipal, we can't force them to do it right now, can we? I mean, they're gonna have to come on if they think it's good.
Yeah, I mean,
So
all
it
of them
can't be
have
a
to-
blanket policy.
No, no one in Lewis County has municipal except for the folks that are on Boonville.
Yeah. And Jerry, ultimately participation is up to every municipality. It's just, we've already gauged some interest, so it's really to help coordinate that effort.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's they have to, you know, enact the local law, go through the whole process and sign the contract. I think back to something Larry had said, the bid for the default energy offerings, which is number, 5 on this implementation process, the CC administrator looks at different projects to, figure out that rate, and, say that Kruger think you can, direct them to look at specific projects. I know that there's one of the communities in Clinton County, I always forget which one, maybe Black River. They're using some of their municipal land for their solar farm that will be their CCA. So like there are, ways for communities to have direction over where that energy is, purchased from. It's not really just the CCA tells you, hey, this is the rate. Like it's a collaborative process to that the municipality has input on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what's the expected cost of this CCA implementation process? What's it going to cost to hire a CCA administrator to negotiate all these individual contracts, or what are we looking at there, and who pays for it?
So we think it'll be free based on other municipalities who've been able to do this, because the life of these projects being like 20-25 years, which again, the municipality's only locked into the whatever contract they agree on, which is typically 2 years. But these types of solar projects are so long-term that their value for them is a much long-term projection. So there is no cost to the municipality to do CCA. It's just the customers who are enrolled when it does launch, they pay their supply to that. The CCA administrator gets a portion of that, and that's how they're paid. But again, they would be paying the 5 to 10% discount. And,
okay.
So it's more just I guess work for our department and the towns and villages that pursue this.
Yeah, it's a lot like a vetting process. We'll vet them to make sure that they're the appropriate party that should be going out there and really advocating for the CCA. We want to make sure that it's an appropriate CCA administrator going out there and advocating. There's not a big pool of them. There's 4. So we're limited, but we've worked with Jewel in the past and they've expressed a lot of interest, but I know that Raycog is also working with a couple other CCA administrators. We're just looking to streamline the process a little bit, so everybody's on the same page, and the definition of aggregate, pretty much. The more people in the pool, the better.
I went through this process when I worked in Ohio. The county did a similar thing. The county contracted for an advisor, a consultant, to work with each of the towns and villages in the county. And what ended up happening in Ohio, it's actually much more difficult to do this. We had to put it out to referendum, and our village adopted it along with a bunch of other towns and villages in the county. And we ended up purchasing collectively and saving our residents money on electric and gas. The only difference that I'm proposing here is that sometime down the line, as more and more green energy projects come on board, we can start to diversify that profile portfolio that we're purchasing energy and try to incorporate some of the local providers as kind of an economic development, initiative. So, but that's the main thought.
And to piggyback off what Ryan said, a lot of the solar developers look at this favorably because it's, a lot of customer acquisition at once, whereas the traditional community solar companies, hiring or getting a contract with each individual household, like even our small towns, for them, that makes the process a lot easier. So, they a lot of them view these as favorable things to work with.
So is everybody clear on the concept? Clear as mud anyway?
It's so simple. How could we not be?
It,
Nutshell, it's not gonna cost the county anything.
Yeah.
That's the important piece, right?
But yeah, energy is a foreign language, but yeah, what Cassie said is, I think, the important underlying factor. Yeah.
Well, I guess the question now would, where do we go from here? What's everybody's thoughts, direction?
Let's do it. Doesn't seem to be a downside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the idea, or no, I have always raised a question. We've got windmills and solar, and it doesn't seem to benefit us at all. So I guess it's something worth at least looking into further, pursuing maybe.
I agree with you, Tom, but I would just comment that we do participate in reward from these projects in the county, as do all the residents, because we don't get any energy. That's true. But I don't know what the millions of dollars totals up to that they pay in pilot fees and payments. It's millions of dollars a year.
That's very true.
We just
net exporter of energy.
And we when we built Maple Ridge, that question came up, and the answer was, do you want power or do you want a tax payment? And it was so difficult to how to define who was going to get power at what rate, commercial, industrial, residential, farmers, and everything else. It was just, and then you have to administer the whole program. It was just far simpler to take the payment in lieu of taxes and, participate that way rather than, trying to provide everybody with power, because I've been through this before and it gets very complicated. I still support it. I think it's a wonderful idea if we can get it done, but it's going to get complicated.
It's already pretty complicated.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just to put it back within the context of the program, just like that 1,500 to 2,000 points gets any of our towns or villages really close to that $10,000 grant threshold, which, I just know this because I've worked with this community already, but like for Turin, for their town barn insulation, that's a chunk of change that can go to that. And if you're also coupling it with 4 actions total, that's $15,000 with, no cost match to put towards different projects that can, further the financial sustainability of town energy or, heating, depending on how they want to use their funds.
Okay, so I guess my question now is what are we looking for at this point? To just give permission to continue or get more information?
If you feel comfortable, Tom, we would move forward with a request for qualifications from, like Cassie said, there's only 4 companies in New York doing this, but we'd ask for them to kind of give us their package of, who's interested in working here in Lewis County, and kind of what are their parameters of operation, and how do they make their finances work. And then we would select one that the county would have a relationship with. And then as the towns and villages, decide on this issue, we would have the administrator in place to coordinate it all together. That would be the goal.
The committee feel like it's worth looking at least further into it?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Okay, we'll get working on the RFQ and see what comes back. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Cassie and Kevin, for the input. We'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks for your questions and, letting us present today.
All right, that it for presentations?
Nope.
Okay.
As if you haven't had enough of us, huh, Tom?
You got to hear from Cassie one more time.
One more time.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see that? Oh, hold on. Everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, as you all may recall, at last month's General Services Committee meeting, Legislator Hathaway had suggested creating a fund that could be managed by the Planning Department to really pursue community development investments. So I worked with Ryan to develop a fund idea for that funding to be set aside, and we've labeled this as the Smart Growth Fund. So the purpose of this fund would be to create a fund specifically tailored for direct community investment, from environmental studies to reuse plans. Like we've gone through the past 6 months, we've begun working on phase 1 assessments of properties. For example, the brick block building, reuse plans. We've applied for New York Main Street grants. Actually, we just got that award to pursue a reuse study on the Glenfield Elementary site, even to complete site remediation of these blighted properties. This fund would give life to dozens of those community development projects that have either been, there's been studies done and people have looked into it, but let's hit the ground running on these. Let's actually get something done. So the first stage that we would propose is project identification. This stage of the project, we would foresee the creation of an ad hoc committee, and we're suggesting that this ad hoc committee have the county manager, county attorney, the planning director and staff, county highway superintendent, real property director, DANK, and at least 3 legislators involved in the process of identifying potential projects that would utilize these funds. Each legislative district would submit a project, and a matrix would be used by the ad hoc committee to identify project feasibility and or what order the project should be completed in. There's a number of different variables that should go into analyzing the feasibility of a project. And some of those criteria are: what is the ease of acquisition? Who's currently in the property? Is it owned? Is it somebody that wants to release the property? Is it somebody that wants to get rid of it? Is it something that's been condemned? The ease of sale following each project completion. The effect on neighborhood property values. Maybe something that's closer residential and in a closer residential zone in a village, as opposed to on the outskirts of a village. Reuse potential. Obviously, the total project cost is going to be a huge component of this. We certainly don't want to put all of our eggs into one project and then not have a sustainable fund going forward. We want to be able to spread the wealth, but we also want to be able to identify projects that we can get done, shovels in the ground and moving forward. Proximity to the downtown corridor. While I love living in the rural area, I I would understand with, smart growth policies that placemaking and community development in the downtown areas would dub the higher points for that particular project. Public relations, does it fit with an established comp plan? That's huge. A county comp plan or a town or village comp plan. Are there likely partners for the project? Is there already a developer that maybe would be interested if you would prove that there was no asbestos, or maybe how much the asbestos removal would cost, something like that. Does the area need green space? And the level of private interest. Does a private entity want the project? For project scope, the ad hoc committee would assess the project's needs and what the best path forward would be with the funding available. So likely examples of that would include site remediation, tank removal, abatement, property acquisition. That's one of the big questions we have, is how would we identify, or how would we acquire properties if needed, demolition, and then of course, starting the process. Maybe the property is in just of need of a phase 1 or 2 environmental assessment, a hazard materials assessment, similar to what we're doing at the brick block building, or a reuse study. So the stage of project funding, where would these funds come from? We obviously don't have money that grows on trees here in Lewis County as much as we'd like that. Fund balance. Currently, there's $55,754 in our account. Ryan, what's the specific name of that account?
Oh, the specific name is HAD 137 or something, but
there's a reason why I could not remember it. And
it's for property cleanup and abatement. We've used that.
We
fund
can,
for the
yeah, we consider it the environmental cleanup fund.
Okay.
That was generated from the tax foreclosures.
Okay, so there is already a fund balance in that account. Possible sales tax revenue. We would like to try to $500,000. We wanted to gauge what the legislators feel was for that, and possible stimulus funds. Now, I finalized this presentation before the bill was passed, but should a portion of the stimulus funds be used towards these projects? And what we really want to hone in on is we want community to benefit from this. We don't want it to be a plan that sits on a shelf. We don't want to, oh, it'd be great if we use that for this. We really want to see shovels in the ground. We want to get projects done. We want the public to see that there's movement, there's development, there's investment. So some of the standing questions we have in order to get to that finish line is ad hoc committee. We would need to solidify who would serve on this ad hoc committee. When would they meet? And the members would need to agree on the complete matrix. Property acquisition, that's always one of the big questions. If a property needs to be acquired, how would we as a county like to proceed with that acquisition? Are we going to do eminent domain at assessed value? Would we submit a purchase offer? How would the board like to see that handled? Stimulus funds. Again, talking about funding, that's the only way to get this fund going and moving. If Lewis County does receive those stimulus funds, and I don't believe that we have the final number yet, should a portion be allocated to this fund? So again, the goal is to just get projects done, move them forward in each district. And obviously the projects would be evaluated once they've been submitted, and an ad hoc committee would use an agreed upon matrix so that everything is even keel and assessed the same. So with that said, Ryan, do you have anything else to add? Did I miss anything?
No, I think I would just say that the purpose of this is to, clean up our community and create opportunities for redevelopment. I think every one of you guys can think of some place in your district that a building is in such terrible condition that it actually drags down the property values of the places around it. And, that they're going to stay like that until somebody takes action. And, this could be our opportunity to take action. So building off Phil's idea, and you guys had asked us to think about it and come back with a little bit of a plan. And so this is what we came up with.
Cassie, I missed the middle part of your presentation. Was part of the idea with this that like wind and solar revenue, some of that would be allocated to this fund, or would that be something separate, or is that not the direction we want to go in with it?
That wasn't a part of our original discussion, but that's something that we can discuss.
Okay.
I don't know what the legislators, I mean, I haven't been involved in those conversations of what the windmill money would be used for, so.
I don't know if the source has to be identified. If we, if we were thinking of doing this, we line item it at X dollars a year, and then budget time, we figure out where we're going to pull the money from.
Joan, where would that come into just conflict with using public money for private funds? Because we don't want to railroad ourselves too much. Like if we're using tax revenue to fund it, doesn't that limit us in the scope of what we can spend the money on, or what the committee can?
Most of these properties, Ian, are properties that should be foreclosed upon, tax foreclosed, that we've been reluctant to do because of the environmental significance there, that, once the county takes title, we're on the hook to fix them up unless we find somebody who we can sell it to, taking it in that condition. So most of the time, we're not going to have that issue because it's something that we should be following through on anyway with the tax foreclosure there. They're not paying taxes. We're losing that revenue. The towns and villages are losing that revenue. So we want to try to get some of these blighted properties back on the tax rolls.
It shouldn't be too hard to make a public interest argument with the properties that are going to be, selected here. I wouldn't imagine.
The towns and villages not losing taxes. We reimburse them.
Right. Good point. Jerry.
Right. Well, that's true. Right.
I guess the other question I have, don't we budget some from tax sale already? About $200,000 that goes into that fund, so it'll be replenished.
No, because we don't know, Jerry, from year to year, what the tax foreclosure revenue is going to bring in. Now, a couple of years where we had a pretty good return, that's when we started that fund.
A portion
Yeah.
of it, right? Okay, so potentially there's money there.
I think that's a great idea for, just as a rule of thumb, whatever we make on that auction can be dumped into this fund to kind of continue the progress. You know what I mean?
It'd be self-perpetuating up to a certain extent because, essentially we're sending it right back out to use it for what created the problem in the first place.
Right.
Well, we've got money from the property auction. We've got potentially some windmill money. We've got maybe some sales tax money that I think the money's there to do it. I think it's a great idea. The hard part is going to be, I think, administering it.
Tom, this is Bill.
Yep.
When I brought this forward, I was hoping for each district to have an opportunity, which just does do that, but also an equal share. And so my concern with this presentation at this moment anyway, is that we identify one or two projects that sucks up all the money, and then the other districts are left out. And I hope I'm seeing this wrong.
Well, I guess that's where I'm saying the administering of it is it, there's an X amount of dollars in that fund, and whatever town village comes in and there's something that needs to be rehabbed, tore down, grass seed planted, whatever. And then the other towns get nothing that year. That's going to be the administration part.
Well, I'm okay with getting nothing that year, but what about next year or the year after? If you use up all the money in the first year for one or two projects, then then the other districts are gonna be left out. Again, if I'm seeing this right.
No, and if I could get all 10 projects done in 1 year, that would be very heroic of our department. But I think that I had envisioned not putting one district behind another, but really using that matrix to identify the best project to start with. And then after that one's complete, or, the ball's rolling on that one, how much funding do we have left after, the anticipated costs of that are met, and continuing the efforts. I don't foresee us paying the entire cost of a demolition with this fund. I feel like it's going to help with collaborations with the LCDC, the IDA, with grant programs to help bridge the gap or to help fill those gaps. I don't at all think that this would be the sole fund to cover a cost of a demolition at all. I think we would definitely do our due diligence to spread the wealth across all districts as much as we possibly can. I agree with you, Phil. I don't think that we should be spending $500,000 in one district and $10,000 in another. I feel like that's how the matrix would kind of help.
Isn't there two different things here at play?
How so, Jerry?
I said, isn't there two different things here at play? One, I'm going to pick West Leiden because I'm not going to get there. We possibly have a garage that's going to fall in, really needs to be cleaned up. So, I guess the question is, if we collected on taxes and this and that would be a separate than from us getting a piece that adjoins, say, their park and stuff like that, because it probably stayed with them. But if we take it for certain cleanups and it's in the county's name, it probably at completion, one way or the other, it ought to be, sell it, whatever it is, get an appraisal, what it's worth, and it's gone. But the towns, when we clean up there and fund that, a lot of times that's going to be a project they want to do, whether it's a, ball field extension, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of looking at two different things, where one may be, if we have to take it to clean it up, it's going to be sold and put back on a tax roll, the land or whatever we end up doing. So we perpetually on that side would be we could finance that $500,000, replenish some of it. So am I looking at it wrong, that there's kind of two different things we're looking at and roads we're going down? What the towns would specifically want to do. It may not be that they don't like the properties run down. They might want to get something, for recreation or whatever. So, and that stays with them.
I would think that
When you came up with this, where was your seed money coming from?
Excess sales tax revenue.
Okay.
So just to respond to Jerry real quick, yeah, the outcome of each property is going to be unique to that project. So in some cases, like West Leiden, that garage perhaps might be better served as a village park if they needed some green space. In that case, we wouldn't be able to sell it and make the money back. And we'd have to just be content knowing that our funding was spent on improving the lives of the residents in West Leiden. But sometimes we can sell
and require them, if they're going to keep it, help them, but they got to come up with funding too. So
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'm not interested in taking on any of these forever. This is a cleanup and flip.
Do with these projects, replenish some of the fund balance each year too.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we could look at net project cost and include that on the matrix. So if we put $200,000 into fixing up Sprout, we were able to sell it, that would, we could take into account the net project cost after everything, so that when we get another project, or when we're starting to look at other projects across the other districts, we take that into consideration. Well, we've already spent that net project cost in that district, so we're looking at other districts to make sure that the wealth is spread.
and then rotate with the projects too, regardless.
Yeah, Phil, and just like what you said earlier, I know your original proposal was to take it initially and split it 10 ways. My concern with that and the conversations I've had with Cassie and Kevin are that you would get in a situation where you wouldn't be able to actually complete any of the 10 projects. You'd be wading in, waist deep to 10 projects rather than actually completing 2 or 3. So, I would like to continue this, but it's going to take years to get to 10 projects. I mean, I'm hoping we maybe do 1 or 2 a year. So it's going to take a long time to get to everybody. So
If those 1 or 2 take $500,000, then there isn't anything left for the other 8.
Right,
That's my concern.
Right, unless we
That's my
continue to,
concern.
unless we continue to fund it and make this a priority, going forward.
So to me, that's where the administration comes in, is they'd have to determine what needs to be done and what can afford to be done. And I guess pick and choose on, we're going to do this one first, and then 2 years from now, we're going to do the other one.
But if the districts or the towns or the village are in charge, then I would see our planning department as an assistant in that process. But I would see them having the lead action on this. So you could have several, maybe 8 or 10 actions going all at once, depending on what you came up with. But I'm like Jerry, I thought we put some of our tax dollars or our sales from property into an account. And my curiosity is, where is it and how much is in that account?
It's right there. It's 55,000
right now.
And how much? I thought we put like almost 200,000 in that between the last 2 or 3 years. Where'd it
No,
go?
no.
No?
We we actually only funded it a couple of years.
Right, but I thought it was
So-
around
and it was
100,000
never-
one
It
year.
was never up to 200. I think maybe the max was 140 or 130, as I recall, but we can have Eric track that back.
Yeah, that's our first part of administration and is tracking some of that. Yep.
Well, for example, we did some cleanup this year. We didn't finish the Rauscher job yet, but the Morcheck job down in West Leiden, that's where we paid for that, was out of this fund.
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
So I mean, I guess being fair and getting to Phil's point, that seeing we did that and we hadn't started this process, it should be based on, okay, you did this for the town of Lewis last year. It's someone else's turn this coming year.
That would all be part of the matrix. That would be
Right.
the rating, the project rating.
Yeah. So I mean, the worst case, if we could do 2 a year, it'd be a 5-year rotation before someone else's turn with something that qualifies.
And that'd be fine.
And maybe we could do, to Dick's point, maybe we could do more than 2 a year, but that would require the towns and villages to step up and contribute,
Well, I can tell you right now that the village of Turin has already said that they would step up to the plate with some money if that brick block building, if you needed funding.
Mm-hmm. They have.
I mean, they can't do a lot, but they can do some,
They have.
Yeah. Okay, the elephant as I see it in the room, guys, we've got 55 in the fund balance. Evidently, there's a possibility we need to discuss the 500,000 for sales tax revenue. But there's the 5.1 stimulus that I think was a piece of this for discussion too. So that's a pile of money if you add that all up. So I think if we decide how much we want to put into this, then that'll give us some idea where we're at, order of magnitude. 5.1 million is a lot of money.
Well, I wouldn't suggest putting all of it in because we also want to do broadband.
No.
Didn't mean to scare you.
Well,
I
whatever
think
we,
500,000 is a good start myself.
What was that, Phil?
I think 500,000 is a good start myself. It's a pilot program. We want to see how it goes.
Oh, yeah. It looks like you got 555 actually, so.
Well, that's true, yeah.
but potentially, I mean, don't we if we're gonna start it, even though it's a pilot program, be committed to continue funding it if it works out?
You betcha.
Yeah, we could continue funding it with the property, the tax foreclosure sales. Because we haven't been, like Joan said, we haven't been keeping up with that.
Well, some of that goes to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Patty has some stuff in there. There's a decent chunk that goes back into that side out of that. Am I wrong?
We do use it to, I mean, right now we use it as straight revenue to balance the budget. So if you divert that away, then we'd have to come up, we could do it because it's not a huge amount in the big scheme of things, but
right.
But that's where it's used right now is it just comes in as other revenue to help balance the budget. So if you're going to segregate that away from the budget, which I think is a great idea, I think we should. I've been trying to think about how to get it done the last 2 budgets and we haven't been able to, but we can push a little harder next year and try to make it happen.
Well, and the other thing is make a commitment, and that's the last time I'm going to say, make a commitment for the fund balance we have left at the end of the year up to a certain amount. And we've been fortunate enough to have the fund balance. So that's already spoken for. It disappears.
Yep.
It's going to cut down on what we put away, but we still have a solid funding source. So.
Can you bring up the slide of the ad hoc again? I can't remember who's on that.
That's another standing question we have this is kind of the people that we thought, or the positions that we thought would be best served on the ad hoc committee, but that's a standing question. Again, who would be on this ad hoc committee?
Cassie, what do you see as Dank's role if they were on that standing ad hoc committee?
Infrastructure needs, development needs, engineering, insight.
Grant funding.
They'd be advisory?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they're potential partners for some of our phase 1 studies. We're working with them to complete the phase 1 or the hazard materials assessment on the brick block. So very knowledgeable to gauge the cost of projects.
I like the looks of the ad hoc committee, the members that are on it. And I get the consensus that everybody kind of likes this idea. It's just a question of what kind of funding or where we're going to come from to get started. Is that a general consensus?
Yep, that's where I'm at, Tom.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I think their funding stream was our excess sales tax revenue. I mean, that's pretty much where we have extra money at this point.
So hopefully next month we'll have year-end numbers for you. The auditors are coming in, and so they'll shore that up. So once we have our year-end numbers from 2020, that'll determine the exact amount we have to, play with for lack of a better term, and maybe we can decide from there what to do. Eric, what do you think?
Yep, I think that would be a good place to start.
Okay, everybody kind of agree with that? We'll look at a number next month and go from there with it.
How are we going to do the legislators on that committee?
Does it say anything in the standing rules about ad hocs, Cassandra?
Ad hocs are usually made by appointment of the chairman.
What's so funny about that, Greg?
No, I mean, I just know that's the way it was. I heard that, but I've read that before.
All right, so are we finished with that, Cassie's report? And
good job, Cassie.
Thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that.
Okay, thank you. We ready to move on to dockets?
Yep, we can go ahead. I just want to note that Ron Burns had to excuse himself, so he is no longer on the meeting. The first is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the Tyler Technologies contract to provide for the training package of $3,000 and the elimination of the civil service and work orders annual maintenance fees for these items which have not been used.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Carried.
Resolution approving correction of tax bill and to authorize the county treasurer to adjust a portion and charge back the towns a total of $3,365.96.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
The next motion was brought forward from the Health and Human Services Committee to authorize Social Services Commissioner Jennifer Jones to refill one full-time social services program examiner position due to promotion effective March 22nd, 2021.
Need a motion and a second for that?
Bill.
Motion
I'll
by
second.
Phil. Greg second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And then I do have another motion to accept cyber liability insurance renewal through Eastern Shore Associates for the period of April 5th, 2021 to April 5th, 2022 at a cost of $15,831.54.
Make a motion. I need a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Greg, second by. I'll second it. Any comments, questions?
Cassandra, did you mention something in the email about maybe getting a reduced rate by making some changes to our security, our internal procedure?
Yeah, our IT director is working on doing the second factor authorization.
Okay, that's what it was.
I'm hoping that once we get that up and running, we can get some kind of credit back. I'm not entirely sure. I do have that question out to our NYMER representative, Kevin Townsend, to see on that.
At least it'll be there next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll be on there.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I had, Tom.
So we have, okay. I guess we need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make that
Bill.
motion, Ian.
Ian,
The reason for the executive session, so we have it on the record, is to discuss three matters that are a contract in negotiation and actually two contracts in negotiation and the status of property.
okay, we got a motion by Ian, second by
Bill.
Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?